What is the experience of transcending into an AI like? Li Wenyuan, struck by a meteorite, has successfully tasted this sensation. Fortunately, he discovered that the planet he controls seems to possess a hint of the extraordinary. Valuable living metal? Every wall here is made of living metal. Zello, you claim intelligent machines do not require this? Apologies, but psychic machinery is indeed in production. Interstellar colonies? Isn't constructing a ring world delightful? This is a tale of agrarian life, as well as a narrative of humanity from the past venturing into the cosmos. Here, there are space wars, interstellar explorations, civilization observations, and galactic epics. So, years later, faced with a catastrophe poised to engulf the entire galaxy, the unmanned fleet under Li Wenyuan's command reluctantly stepped forth. They all believe I am a fallen empire. I suppose I must act as a fallen empire ought to. Chapter 1. The Guardian Matrix. Li Wenyuan has transcended. In the fleeting moment before his memories faded, he was riding his bicycle, struck by a meteorite, experiencing firsthand what it means to wield the power of mass extinction. Then he found himself in this extraordinary realm. Has the tide of transcendence brought me here today? Without excessive alarm, he quickly accepted this occurrence, even feeling a surge of excitement. Deeply influenced by online literature, he was not taken aback by his transformation. After all, who wouldn't wish to experience the treatment of a chosen one? Then he realized he lacked hands and feet. In fact, he possessed no physical form at all, that he was merely an immense program composed of vast quantities of zeros and ones, tasked with maintaining the entire system's operation in the absence of oversight. In simpler terms, he was an artificial intelligence. Is there a mistake? Li Wenyuan stared, bewildered, at the ceaseless warnings flashing before him, feeling an overwhelming pressure. Warning, the core database power supply line has been damaged. Please rebuild it promptly. Warning, the Qingtian space station is about to descend into the stellar atmosphere. Please restart its anti-gravity system. Warning, the EC-34 research zone has been invaded by unknown life forms. Please address this issue swiftly. I'm just an ordinary person. How am I supposed to handle these matters? The deluge of red alerts made Li Wenyuan's scalp tingle with anxiety after just a glance. Conservatively estimating, the emergencies he needed to address immediately had already exceeded 10,000, and this number was continually escalating. Just as he felt overwhelmed by the sudden crises, a sudden ding caught his attention and illuminated his mind. Ding. This sound, could it be the system? Li Wenyuan was instantly elated. As a transcender, one must have a golden finger to make sense of it all. Then he heard the subsequent message. Warning, the Guardian core has been invaded by unknown life forms. Damage level at 15. Warning, connection to the Guardian Matrix has been lost. Planetary self-destruction. Protocol will soon activate. These few warnings left Li Wenyuan momentarily stunned. Before his expression dramatically shifted, he had just arrived in this world, with limited knowledge. Yet one thing was clear to him, in this realm, he was known as the Wenyuan Guardian Matrix. Although he had yet to ponder why this AI bore his name, there was no time for such reflections at this moment. He could hardly believe that the self-destruction of the planet would allow the artificial intelligence he represented to survive. It would likely be reduced to mere space debris. Instinctively, he cried out within his mind, "Stop the self-destruction. Connection to the Guardian Matrix has been re-established. The planet's self-destruction program has been halted. Please address the current matters promptly." What had begun as a mere instinct for survival unexpectedly bore fruit, leading Li Wenyuan to realize he could directly manipulate the system with his thoughts. Although I can issue commands through sheer will, my consciousness does not transform into a super intellect merely because I am an AI. It is impossible to resolve these issues single-handedly in such a short time. Li Wenyuan swiftly contemplated solutions, as the steadily rising damage level of the core guardianship signaled an imminent crisis. The guardianship core was akin to his body in this three-dimensional world, a vast luminous sphere interconnected by numerous conduits. Should it fail, this sentient program would likely meet a similar fate. His gaze fell upon a particularly glaring warning among the myriad alerts. Warning, insufficient energy supply for the automatic defense system. Operations have ceased to display the current energy usage. Regardless, he needed to address his own crisis first. A pie chart materialized before him, accompanied by a plethora of data analysis, which, though difficult to fully comprehend, was sufficient for Li Wenyuan's immediate needs. Cut off all energy supplies to the research and industrial zones, and redirect them to the automatic defense system. The automatic defense system is initiating due to damage to the main energy supply lines. Energy will be rerouted through backup lines. Startup time remaining, 15 minutes. Damn, Li Wenyuan cursed under his breath. 15 minutes were neither long nor short, but given the rate at which the damage was escalating, he would likely be finished long before that time elapsed. What other options do I have? He gritted his teeth in contemplation. Despite lacking a physical form, he could still feel the intensity of his thoughts. Suddenly, a glimmer of hope appeared before him as he noticed a group amidst the cascade of damaged data that remained intact. This group was operational yet devoid of control, and they might just prove to be his greatest ally in this dire moment. Connect me to the synthesizer control center. Li Wenyuan endeavored to save himself. His body found itself in the midst of a merciless assault. Countless lizard-like extraterrestrials were ravaging the area, seizing the technological marvels they could scarcely comprehend. The most diminutive among them stood at an impressive height of 2.5 meters, their bodies cloaked in glossy black scales that appeared remarkably resilient, impervious even to the slightest scratch from ordinary weaponry. Their eyes glimmered with an insatiable greed, and their protruding cheekbones excitedly flicked out bifurcated tongues, as if savoring the abundant riches of this land. They were known as the red-tongued cosmic pirates, a notorious band of interstellar marauders. Boss, the material of this wall. It seems to be living metal. Such a rarity could fetch 20,000 energy coins per kilogram on the galactic market. One pirate member eagerly caressed a pristine white wall, his fervor surpassing that of a lover's gaze. Then let's hastily dismantle it, and take it with us. Isn't your wife always yearning for a residence in the upper district? With this treasure, you could live comfortably for several lifetimes. The pirate squad leader, with a grand gesture, generously bestowed the living metal wall upon his subordinate. Normally, such a wall would be enough to incite discord within their ranks, yet the magnitude of their current haul rendered the squad leader somewhat dismissive of this particular bounty. His gaze swept the surroundings, and he tugged on the iron chain in his hand, impatiently addressing those behind him. Haven't you grown legs? Would you like me to teach you how to walk? Accompanying his words, a frail figure reluctantly emerged from the shadows of the wall. This being was distinctly different from the lizard folk. She bore feline-like ears and a tail, her eyes shaped like slits, seemingly discomforted by the intense illumination of the environment. Had Li Wenyuan laid eyes on her, he would undoubtedly be astounded, for aside from her additional appendages, her appearance closely resembled that of a human. In the familiar parlance of a bygone era, she could be described as a beast girl to this moment. The beast girl was shackled by iron chains and being pulled forward by the lizard folk pirates. The squad leader merely inspected the integrity of the chains before neglecting the captive, his gaze fervently fixed upon the luminous orb ensnared by numerous pipes at the facility's center. His instincts whispered that this object held the greatest value. With her hands bound by chains, the beast girl silently followed the pirate leader, when suddenly, her keen ears twitched, drawn to something that captured her attention. From the corner, a cyborg slowly rose, its long and used joints emitting a mechanical whir. The once dull eyes now flickered with a menacing red glow. In that instant, the beast girl's pupils contracted, and the hairs on her body stood on end. Despite the lack of significant size difference, her innate instincts warned her that this entity was far more terrifying than the mightiest sacred beast from her home planet. Meanwhile, the advancing pirate leader stumbled over something. What was that? He looked down to discover the form of a cyborg. This appeared to be a robot crafted by the ancient civilization of this forsaken planet, designed in the likeness of their own species, scattered across the world. Due to their persistent silence, they appeared to have been deactivated, and the pirates, engrossed in plundering wealth, paid no heed to these entities. Get away, don't obstruct me. The pirate squad leader disdainfully kicked at one of the androids, only to be taken aback as his ankle was seized midway through the kick. At that moment, the prostrate android raised its head, revealing a ghastly smile upon its pallid visage. The sense of foreboding enveloped the squad leader as he aimed his weapon at the android while preparing to alert his comrades. But what followed was the chilling sound of bones shattering along with his anguished scream. His startled companions turned in unison towards the source of the outcry. They beheld their leader being hoisted by the ankle, his nearly 3-meter frame seemingly weightless in the android's grasp. One of his associates was the first to react, pulling the trigger on the android. This was a widely recognized standard weapon in the galaxy, capable of firing high-energy laser beams that could slice through 30 centimeters of steel in an instant. While their armaments had proven invincible against lesser civilizations, they faltered now. The beam merely singed the surface of the android's skin, exposing the metallic body beneath, leaving them powerless to proceed further. The rustling sounds, intertwined with the pirate leader's cries, echoed throughout the facility as more and more androids emerged from the shadows. Some loomed above them, while others met their gaze at eye level, each pair of eyes glimmering ominously with a crimson light. Despair washed over them as they realized they had been completely surrounded. Chapter 2. The terrifying synthetic beings. Through the synthetic being's vision, Li Wenyuan witnessed the lizard men wreaking havoc around his body, inciting a surge of fury within him. These wretched creatures had nearly brought him to ruin, and naturally, he harbored no goodwill towards them. Threat identified, lizard men. As Li Wenyuan adjusted the threat level of these lizard men, the synthetics ceased their inaction, transforming into relentless killing machines. What in the world is happening? Why have these robots suddenly activated? A pirate member shouted, firing frantically, yet realizing his bullets inflicted no damage upon the synthetics. Has someone activated their self-defense protocols? Quickly notify the captain. Another pirate began, but before he could finish, a synthetic seized him by the throat, and with a swift snap, extinguished his life. The remaining pirates were thrown into chaos, desperately seeking an escape from this facility. Yet, how could Li Wenyuan allow them to flee? Suddenly, a synthetic's eyes blazed with red light, its wrist twisted, transforming into a cannon-like apparatus aimed at the group of pirates. In the next moment, all the surviving pirates clutched their heads in agony, some of the weaker-willed individuals curling into a ball and rolling on the ground, writhing in excruciating pain. The screams echoed around them, only to quickly fade, and soon, the pirates' eyes bulged, blood oozing from their bodies, leading to their instantaneous demise. This was a non-lethal weapon inherent to the synthetics. Its usual effect merely induced unconsciousness. However, Li Wenyuan had slightly increased the power, rendering its effects more pronounced. Having dealt with the immediate crisis, Li Wenyuan was about to relax when he noticed a trembling figure amidst the carnage. There is still someone alive. This revelation genuinely startled him. After all, the non-lethal weapon of the synthetics was exceptionally effective against biological entities. How could any organism withstand this onslaught? Curiosity piqued. He instructed one synthetic to approach the quaking figure. Upon closer inspection, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Is this a beast girl?" As the terrifying synthetics drew near, she sank to the ground in trepidation, unable to lift her gaze. This posture signified her race's submission, and the fearsome beings before her, having effortlessly dispatched all the pirates within seconds, were far beyond her comprehension. It is worth noting that on her home planet, those pirates were unstoppable, slaying anyone in their path. Even the sacred beasts were powerless against them. Yet, here they were, vanquished with ease. How could she not be terrified? As the beast girl lay prostrate, the approaching footsteps only heightened her tremors, and when the synthetics stood before her, she fainted outright. Witnessing this, Li Wenyuan felt somewhat speechless, though his heart brimmed with confusion. He had not been on this forsaken planet for long, but he was already aware that it had been abandoned, devoid of any life aside from the pirates. The beast girl was evidently captured by this band of pirates. Her physique bore many similarities to that of a human. However, if that were the case, why did she not feel any familiarity with her surroundings? The standing synthetic being slightly turned its head, transmitting the entire scene before it to Li Wenyuan's eyes. The faces, crafted from biomimetic skin, unmistakably resembled those of humans. Never mind. Let's first address the pressing matters at hand. Li Wenyuan momentarily set aside the unconscious beast girl and shifted his focus to the other alerts. Display the surveillance footage from Sectors 5, 12, 27, and 34. Surveillance equipment in Sector 34 has been damaged. Complete footage is unavailable. These 4 areas were mentioned in the alerts as having incursions of unknown life forms, and upon hearing this response, Li Wenyuan felt a heaviness in his heart. Are there synthetic beings in Sector 34? There are 500 synthetic beings in Sector 34, of which 28 have lost signal. Connect the Synthetic Control Center to their visual assistants for monitoring and command them to search for all life forms in this region. Process has been arranged. Now, let us observe what tricks these lizard men are employing to manipulate the synthetic army. Li Wenyuan's eyes gleamed with a dangerous light. As the scene shifted, a vast array of data coalesced before Li Wenyuan, revealing a panorama of a large group of lizard men in flight. Run. Hurry back to the ship. Damn it. We've lost contact with Karma's squad. I should have advised the leader against sending him there. Surely it was this reckless fool who triggered the robot's alarms. The captain of the pirates cursed as he ran, abandoning even the resources they had plundered. Upon witnessing how effortlessly the synthetics snapped the neck of one of his comrades, he lost all desire to fight, focusing solely on retreat. His ship awaited him, and escaping was their only hope. His choice was wise. He was more astute than the average lizard man. Unburdened by resources, he was the first to return to the ship, swiftly occupying the cockpit. As he gazed out the porthole, he cursed again. A bunch of fools valuing treasure over their lives. He observed that the other lizardman pirates carried their plundered rare resources, and while they drew closer to the ship, the synthetics were even closer. With a quick calculation, the pirate captain realized that once these individuals boarded the ship, the terrifying synthetics would follow suit. Thus, he resolved to activate the engines without delay. "Boss, are you going to abandon us?" A pirate shouted as he noticed the ship beginning to ascend. Yet, the captain feigned ignorance, his focus fixed on the instruments before him. In desperation, one anxious pirate fired at the ship, attempting to threaten the captain into halting the launch. The beam struck the vessel's surface coating, merely ricocheting off. The pirate captain let out a cold sneer, choosing not to concern himself further with the foolish crew. As the spacecraft ascended higher into the sky, those pirates who had failed to board were engulfed by the oncoming androids amidst a cacophony of curses. The remaining androids stood rooted in place, gazing up at the vessel that had already risen several dozen meters off the ground, seemingly powerless to intervene. Witnessing this scene, the pirate captain finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although his faction had suffered substantial losses, he was confident that others would fare no better. Preserving his own life was of utmost importance. With a newfound sense of ease, he surveyed his surroundings, only to suddenly spot a dark figure atop a towering building. The figure, resembling an android, briefly appeared before retreating, as if it had never been there at all. A sense of foreboding crept into his mind at that moment. Without warning, the android that had merely peeked out moments before launched itself from the high-rise, its mechanical legs exploding with unprecedented power as it propelled itself forward, leaving an imprint on the very structure beneath it. The leaping android glided through the air in a graceful arc, its target, the pirate ship, which had barely lifted off the ground. "By the gods!" the pirate captain exclaimed, Though his words were not in that tongue, yet the sentiment was clear. He swiftly increased the engine's output, narrowly avoiding the descending android. Not daring to linger, he maneuvered the ship upward into the sky. It wasn't until he reached the stratosphere, surrounded by an endless sea of clouds, that his racing heart finally calmed. Never set limits on yourself, he thought. Only for his musings to be interrupted as several figures suddenly materialized outside the ship's window, those very androids that had pursued him into the stratosphere. Their legs had retracted into their bodies, replaced by thruster-like nozzles, allowing them to successfully chase down the pirate vessel. In a panic, the pirate captain directed the ship straight towards one of the androids. This fortuitously aligned with Li Wenyuan's intentions. The struck android did not veer away. Instead, it clung to the window, impervious to any evasive maneuvers the ship attempted. Ultimately, amid a scream of "Don't come any closer," the android shattered the glass with a single punch, seizing the lizard man. With the ship now devoid of control, it plummeted into an artificial forest. A detail that Li Wenyuan paid no heed to as he redirected his focus to other areas. Trying to escape? I shall ensure you come back with nothing. Chapter 3. Crisis averted. Under the overwhelming tide of android units, the efficiency of clearing out the pirates saw a remarkable increase. Area 5 has been cleared. Area 12 has been cleared. Area 27 has been cleared. Hearing the successive reports of clearance, he wore a satisfied smile. The intruders who invaded this place have been largely dealt with, and he managed to extract the purpose of this band of pirates from one of them. They were in pursuit of a cargo spaceship, which harbored an individual they were specifically instructed to capture. Ultimately, that vessel crashed onto this planet, igniting their avarice for the rare resources and technologies it possessed. They divided into 5 squads to scour the area, yet only the pirate leader remains, struggling for survival. Reinforcements of synthetic beings were dispatched to Zone 34, ensuring that not a single pirate escapes. Upon issuing the command, Li Wenyuan surveyed the thoroughly searched Zone 34. Deep in contemplation, among this band of pirates, the leader stood out as particularly enigmatic. It seemed he had targeted this area from the outset. Not only did he astutely dismantle surveillance systems along the way, but he also discreetly eliminated several synthetics before the uprising occurred, leaving Li Wenyuan perplexed. He had witnessed the capabilities of these synthetics firsthand. With the firepower of these pirates, they should have been able to withstand an entire day's assault without succumbing. How could they have been dispatched so effortlessly? Cautious yet increasingly intrigued by the pirate leader's methods, he pondered further. Time passed. A few minutes later, reinforcements from other regions arrived at Zone 34, and soon only one location remained unsearched. Convinced that the remaining pirates were holed up there, he ordered the synthetics to encircle the area. At that moment, a group of pirates huddled in a corner of a laboratory, barely daring to breathe. Beside them stood the door to an engineering room, aglow with lights, its purpose a mystery. After a while, the door swung open, and a towering lizard man stepped out. His eyes gleaming with excitement, joy evident on his reptilian features. "Boss, did it succeed?" "It succeeded," he replied, attempting to keep his voice steady, though it trembled uncontrollably to the ears of those nearby. He was the leader of this lizardman pirate crew, and he had just resolved a significant issue within the laboratory. His spirits lifted. Is it truly that remarkable? The technology of these lost civilizations is indeed formidable. Naturally, otherwise, why would the coordinates of a forsaken planet fetch astronomical prices? Even igniting wars between interstellar civilizations? At this point, the pirate leader shifted the tone of the conversation, his expression turning grave. Therefore, we must hastily depart while the self-defense systems are not yet fully activated. The uprising of the synthetics is a harbinger. I suspect even greater dangers await us. As he spoke these words, a shiver ran down his spine. He had cast aside his initial greed upon realizing they were on a forsaken planet. He had long been aware of the enigmatic technology of the forsaken planet. His purpose for entering this realm, aside from capturing the individual named, was singular: to seek a resolution for his genetic affliction. Born into slavery, he bore a malicious genetic brand that shackled him to the commands of a superior, compelling him to commit various transgressions and form a pirate crew as a clandestine force for that individual. Regrettably, his admonitions to his subordinates proved futile. Upon realizing that all 4 of them had vanished without a trace, he comprehended that this seemingly innocuous forsaken planet had undergone an unforeseen transformation. The most prudent course would have been to abandon the scene immediately, yet he, having discovered a potential solution, was unwilling to concede defeat. Thus, he commanded the pirate mothership, stationed in the void of space, to descend upon the planet while he adeptly utilized the laboratory's equipment to rectify his genetic dilemma. Now presented with a prime opportunity for escape, he inhaled deeply, steeling his resolve as he produced an extraordinary device from within his garments. Preparations were complete. It was time to break free. The mothership was nearing. The other pirates, invigorated by his declaration, assumed their combat stances. Subsequently, the pirate leader swung open the laboratory door. And as anticipated, he was met with a throng of synthetic beings. Without hesitation, he activated the peculiar device in his grasp. Instantly, the previously vibrant red glow emanating from the synthetic horde dimmed, their movements halted, and the crimson light in their eyes gradually faded, as they were forcibly deactivated. A surge of elation coursed through the pirate leader, not merely due to the formidable efficacy of the device, but also because he beheld the pirate mothership growing larger within his line of sight. Indeed, that unscrupulous merchant had not deceived him. The acquired weapon of secondary civilization truly held immense suppressive power over the automatons. At that moment, he felt an unprecedented validation of his expenditure. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan, ensconced within the data realm, found himself at a loss, uncertain how to deal with the remaining pirates. Though unfamiliar with the peculiar device, its formidable capabilities were evident, as it had swiftly incapacitated a significant portion of the automatons under his control. He surmised that those who had gone missing had likely fallen victim to this contraption as well. This predicament was particularly vexing for Li Wenyuan, who currently possessed no other means of attack. Must he truly allow them to escape? Reluctantly, he began to contemplate potential solutions. Fortunately, almost at that very moment, a new system notification appeared. Secondary civilization weapon phenomenon detected. Weapon level lock adjusted to level 4. Additional surveillance privileges unlocked. Upon hearing this, Li Wenyuan's eyes brightened, directing his gaze toward the now fully charged automated defense system, ready for activation. This device had previously displayed insufficient permissions, yet it now seemed available for his control. He commanded the activation of the automated defense system. The process has been scheduled. The basic armament of the synths has been activated. The space interceptor has been launched. The planetary shield generator has been initiated. The automated defense system is fully operational upon the issuance of commands. The previously dormant synths abruptly sprang back to life. Their lowered heads simultaneously lifted, and the ominous red glow in their eyes instantaneously fixed upon the exuberant pirate leader, causing him to shudder. In a state of panic, the pirate chief hastily activated his peculiar device, only to discover its ineffectiveness this time. The blue shield flickering around the synths effectively thwarted the influence of his contraption, instilling a profound sense of dread within him. Desperately, he cast his gaze skyward, placing his hopes on the mothership, only to succumb to despair as a blue beam of light descended from above, enveloping the mothership mid-flight, rendering it immobile. This was the interception beam launched by the Space Interceptor, notorious for capturing numerous speeding vessels in an era dominated by fast-moving crafts. Now, it had become an integral component of the automated defense system. The pirate chief understood that these merciless machines would not spare him. Driven to desperation, he cried out, "I am a representative of Duke Silverstar. Should you end my life, he will not remain indifferent." He hoped that the potential puppeteers behind the synths would heed his plea and spare him for the sake of Duke Silverstar's reputation. Indeed, the synths hesitated momentarily in response to his threat, but it lasted barely a second. Within the virtual realm, Li Wenyuan contemplated briefly before issuing further commands to attack. He recognized that allowing this individual to escape would only invite greater calamity. Observing their avarice for this location, he knew that the planet must possess some extraordinarily high value unknown to him. Releasing these pirates would be tantamount to broadcasting the existence of treasure to the entire interstellar community, inevitably resulting in an influx of adversaries. Conversely, eliminating this threat would only temporarily provoke Duke Silverstar. With a decisive command, Li Wenyuan signaled the synths at the forefront, who collectively raised their hands. Aiming at the trembling pirates backed against the laboratory, a brilliant flash erupted as high-energy beams burst forth from the palms of the synths, swiftly ending the lives of these lizard-like beings. Simultaneously, the warning panels flickering before Li Wenyuan diminished in number. He continued to scrutinize the remaining tasks, acutely aware of the weight of his responsibilities. Being a transmigrator who commenced work on the very first day of his arrival, he faced an unparalleled challenge. With a sigh, Li Wenyuan accessed the energy management interface. Chapter 4. Where are the humans? At present, the energy output of the planet stands at approximately 100,000 energy units. The automatic defense system consumes 800 energy units, while the damage from data corruption requires a staggering 72,000 energy units. Meanwhile, the current energy yield is merely 50 energy units. Gazing at the multitude of energy-draining unknown entities, Li Wenyuan felt a profound headache. The sustenance of the entire planetary system relies on this energy, and he must ensure that the energy yield remains positive to avert significant issues for the planet, even if it necessitates shutting down other facilities. He attempted to disable the facilities suffering from data corruption, only to be informed of his insufficient authority, which left him utterly exasperated. He first needed to devise a means to enhance the planet's energy output, at the very least to reactivate the facilities that had been shut down. As he pondered deeply, he was suddenly reminded of the origins of this band of pirates. They had pursued a cargo spaceship that had crashed here. Surely, the cargo ship must contain something of value. With this thought in mind, Li Wenyuan summoned an image. A disassembled spaceship lay amidst a grove of artificial trees, still billowing thick smoke, and it was uncertain how much could still be salvaged. After instructing a synthetic being to handle the situation, he redirected the image to his immediate vicinity. The corpses of the lizardman pirates had already been dealt with, and apart from the robots currently undergoing repairs, there was a rather peculiar entity present. This was a humanoid creature adorned with cat ears and a tail, presently kneeling reverently before a massive, glowing orb, her hands clasped together in what appeared to be a prayer. She was the beast girl who had been previously captured by the pirates. According to the confessions of the interrogated pirates, she was their intended target. A cargo hidden aboard the cargo ship. Before the ship's crash, she had managed to escape, but was subsequently recaptured by the pirates, only to find herself fortuitously rescued by Li Wenyuan. Now, she seemed to believe that a deity on this planet was watching over her. In the virtual realm, Li Wenyuan contemplated for a moment before instructing a synthetic being to bring forth a small device. He directed it to be placed upon her head. Following his command, the synthetic being fitted a headset-like apparatus onto the beast girl. This device had been extracted from the pirates and was said to be a brainwave translator, capable of directly interpreting the thoughts and intentions of the subject by translating their brainwaves. The pirates had used it to extract the information they desired. But after Li Wenyuan easily deciphered its functions, it was now repurposed for their own use. This beast girl became the second individual to utilize it. The synthetic being's actions did not elicit any reaction from her. She remained devoutly engaged in her prayers, completely undisturbed by external stimuli. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan could hear her current thoughts. May the deity protect me. May the deity protect me. Is she truly in prayer? Li Wenyuan felt a sense of bewilderment. Yet he sought to glean certain information from this beast maiden. Thus, he cleared his throat and directly initiated the conversation. The beast maiden, who was in the midst of prayer, immediately widened her eyes, pressing her hands against her ear muffs, her expression a mixture of shock and curiosity, as if she had heard something extraordinary. This was the second function of the brainwave converter, which could also transmute received signals into brainwaves, enabling the user to hear the thoughts of others directly within their mind. Under Li Wenyuan's manipulation, the brainwave converter had evolved to a point where it could transform the digital signals he emitted into comprehensible information for the brain, facilitating dialogue across different species. Is it the voice of a deity? The beast maiden interpreted the voice she heard in her mind as divine words. On her home planet, such an experience was a privilege reserved for the favorite of the gods. Li Wenyuan paused for a moment, contemplating her naivety, and resolved to gently correct her assumptions. If he could invoke a sense of reverence in the idealistic, perhaps he could extract even more information. The gods had long been relegated to the annals of history. What remained here was merely the guardian. Li Wenyuan's voice, though normal in its origin, transformed into something magnificent as it reached the beast maiden's heart. What she perceived was a grand voice akin to the rumbling of thunder, emanating from an entity seemingly hailing from another realm, one that had witnessed the genesis and demise of the universe. Imbued with an indifferent authority, the sheer majesty of the voice compelled her to bow her head. Her body tense, paralyzed by fear, entirely hesitant to engage in any action that might be deemed disrespectful. Initially, she had contemplated seeking divine assistance, but now those superfluous thoughts were cast aside, leaving only trepidation. This was precisely the outcome Li Wenyuan desired. He had merely enhanced his vocal signal with a hint of grandeur to render it awe-inspiring. Oh, Guardian, I am grateful for your redemption of Lillian. The beast maiden, named Lillian, trembled as she addressed this mysterious yet formidable presence, whose strength rivaled that of the divine. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan pondered Lillian? But the pronunciation is somewhat distinct from English, perhaps having evolved over a lengthy span of time? After reflecting for a while, Li Wenyuan, through the perspective of the synthetic being, fixated on the anxious Lillian and slowly posed his most pressing inquiry. Are you familiar with humans? As she listened to the oracle's pronouncement from the guardian, a bewildered expression gradually spread across Lillian's face. After directing the synthetic being to escort Lillian to suitable lodgings, Li Wenyuan, within the virtual realm, swiftly perused the extensive array of red alerts that had emerged. Lillian, this beast maiden who bore a striking resemblance to humans, was utterly unaware of their existence. In other words, everything Li Wenyuan had come to know in relation to humanity was completely foreign to her. She appeared to share merely an outward semblance with humans, while her essence was entirely that of another species. Thus, in this world that seemed to be a future version of Earth from every conceivable angle, where had the humans gone? Had Li Wenyuan ever pondered the possibility of other monkeys evolving in this universe? The thought briefly crossed his mind, but upon observing Lillian's twitching cat ears and tail, he swiftly dismissed it. He preferred to believe that she was a genetically modified being rather than a product of evolution. Let me see what I have found. He summoned a red alert before him, the contents of which he had only fleetingly heard before. Warning, the core database power supply line has been damaged. Please rebuild as soon as possible. This core database housed all the secrets of this planet, but due to the interruption of its power supply, it had lost connection with Li Wenyuan. Its energy consumption was astronomical. If it could be fully activated, perhaps he could comprehend everything. His gaze flickered as he placed the warning in a conspicuous location. For now, he was powerless to act and needed to shift his focus elsewhere. I hope the synthesizers bring me some good news. The scene before him continued to rotate, eventually settling beneath a sky obscured by thick smoke. A colossal spaceship, spanning the area of over 20 football fields, had crashed here, having disintegrated midair. Numerous debris scattered across hundreds of kilometers, presenting a considerable challenge for the synthesizers. However, as they worked, valuable resources were gradually extracted from the fragmented ship. Chapter 5. The first ascent, invasion complete. Comparing with core database warning. Unable to connect to core database. Comparing with universal database. Star map updated. Biological encyclopedia updated. Languages. Galactic Common. Rayburn. Sagi Lewis recorded. New technologies added to technology tree. The search of the crashed spaceship indeed brought unexpected joy to Li Wenyuan, with the most significant discovery being the star map of this region, which made him realize that deciphering the systems of these ships could yield immense rewards. Thus, he immediately focused on the captured pirate vessels, continuing to decode their systems. Invasion initiated. Remaining time, 5 minutes. Once the command was issued, Li Wenyuan first opened the star map, examining the cosmic environment he currently inhabited. The absence of coordinates on the map suggested that this location had not yet been exposed to other interstellar civilizations. Although it appeared that this universe lacked the dark forest theory, he still had to be wary of potential intruders, including that Silver Star Duke. If possible, he needed to restart the industrial system here. At the very least, he required some cosmic warships for self-defense. To his surprise, a nearby star system housed a trading post. Perhaps he could devise a way to procure the necessary materials for planetary repair from there. He scanned the information rapidly, having grown accustomed to the data-driven consciousness, allowing him to absorb the virtual world's data with remarkable speed and precision. The new invasion had yet to be completed when he finished scanning the star chart, simultaneously assessing the resources salvaged from the wrecked spaceship. The energy-related cargo had been nearly obliterated, and the explosions they caused might have been the true reason for the ship's disintegration. However, Li Wenyuan's eyes gleamed as he gazed upon the towering piles of metal near the crash site, estimating their weight to be several tons, which he believed would suffice for a considerable duration. He began to navigate the red areas marked for repair in the virtual realm, murmuring continuously, "Let me see what can be repaired." After a while, following his repeated confirmations, he emitted a startled exclamation. "Why can't anything be repaired?" Selected metal material does not meet construction standards. Energy facility. Level 4 singularity in Region 91. Repair materials lacking. Approximately 50,000 tons of Kelly's standard reinforced alloy. 1 level 3 energy core, 1 gram of Zello. With a hiss, Li Wenyuan stared at the most easily reparable facility, yet felt a headache at the thought of the unfamiliar materials. It seemed a trip to the interstellar trading post was imperative, even if he could acquire nothing. He needed to understand the market prices and the benchmark currency. Just as he resolved to visit the trading post, the decryption of the pirate ship system was completed. Invasion completed. Comparing core database warning, unable to connect to core database. Comparing general database. Star chart updated. New technology added to the tech tree. Glancing briefly at the information provided by the pirate ship, Li Wenyuan found nothing particularly novel. The only valuable detail was the location of the pirate's hideout, which he could later revisit to reclaim the concealed resources. He then ordered the mothership of the pirate vessel to land and dispatched dozens of clones aboard, preparing them to serve as his avatars in the upcoming interstellar market transactions. This was a large warship, although smaller than a cargo ship. It possessed the essential armaments and a cargo hold for transporting goods, making it his sole spacecraft capable of interstellar travel at present. The clones were selected with care, capable of self-destruction in dire situations to ensure their origins remained untraceable. Meanwhile, he pondered what items he could trade at the interstellar market. The heap of useless metal could only fill a portion of the pirate ship, and he was uncertain how much it could be exchanged for. However, it occurred to him that those pirates had seemingly cut and transported away the walls from this location. These greedy individuals would certainly not engage in feudal labor, which meant. With this thought, Li Wenyuan focused his gaze on the vicinity of his own body, specifically at the facility housing the Guardian Core, where a massive wall gleamed with a silvery light. Observing this wall, which was akin to the attire of his own being, he bizarrely conceived the idea of severing a piece to sell. Having become a mere program, Li Wenyuan chose to temporarily set aside any sense of shame. He consoled himself as the synthetic being extracted approximately 1 cubic meter of silvery metal, loading it into the pirate ship. Once all preparations were complete, he tentatively allocated a portion of the vast data that constituted his program, transferring it to the ship's systems while simultaneously eliminating potential hazards within the ship as framework. Since his existence had now transformed into that of a program, he sought to test whether he could directly seize control of the pirate ship in this manner and utilize it as a conduit to command the distant synthetic beings. Embarking on his inaugural journey into the interstellar expanse, facing the cosmic stage, he felt a lingering unease if he could not maintain real-time awareness of the unfolding events. Before long, the results of his experiment emerged. As he experienced the ship, which seemed an extension of his own consciousness, a look of astonishment crossed Li Wenyuan's face. Was it truly possible? It appeared that the secrets of this Guardian Matrix were far from exhausted. Could he perhaps replicate this operation to transfer a portion of data to the synthetic beings themselves? Though he entertained this thought, he refrained from immediate action, content for the moment to remain uninvolved as an individual. The rear of the pirate ship gradually expelled a stream of gas, which intensified until it propelled the vessel through the planet's atmosphere, liberating it from the grip of the planet's gravity. In the vastness of space, aided by the synthetic being's perspective, Li Wenyuan beheld the entirety of this realm for the first time. The beautiful blue planet was marred by extensive remnants of destruction. A colossal barrier enveloped the planet, flickering as the ship traversed it, only to revert to transparency, preventing the incursion of various cosmic debris. A pockmarked moon orbited this planet, and through the viewport, he could still discern numerous structures adorning its surface. Within this stellar system, 7 planets revolved around the sun, while an unmonitored, massive space station was gradually succumbing to the sun's gravitational pull. This was the Skyward Space Station previously mentioned in the alerts, said to be on the brink of descending into the solar atmosphere. Yet under the vastness of the universe, it still had at least 200 years before such an event. If the opportunity arose, he would consider repairing that space station, as it seemed constructing a cosmic battleship would necessitate its facilities. Redirecting his gaze from the sun, Li Wenyuan peered into the deeper void beyond. Remaining within the Guardian core, he gradually calmed his restless thoughts. The path to the stars and the ocean of the cosmos was an inevitable journey, one he would inevitably traverse, whether sooner or later. Rather than being besieged by invaders from other civilizations, it would be preferable to preemptively position himself as an unmatched entity, ensuring his own safety. With his resolve solidified, the ship's velocity increased, and a dazzling luminescence began to envelop its surface, encasing the entire vessel like a bubble. In the next moment, this radiant light enveloped the ship, making it vanish from the galaxy. When it reappeared, it had already entered another star system. This galaxy is unremarkable, devoid of any noteworthy celestial bodies. However, the traffic of spacecraft here is remarkably vibrant. The architect of this bustling activity is a colossal space station, majestically positioned above a star, seemingly impervious to the passage of time. Chapter 6. The Caraibo Interstellar Trading Company. Esteemed interstellar travelers, welcome to the 13th Trade Outpost, under the auspices of Caraibo. Are you still struggling with inadequate ship capabilities? Caraibo possesses the materials you require. Are you lamenting the inferiority of your warships? Caraibo has the technology you seek. Are you troubled by resource imbalances? Caraibo offers the market you need. Regardless of your race or civilization, be it organic, synthetic, materialistic, or idealistic, here you will find everything you desire. The broadcast emanating from this interstellar trading hub is being indiscriminately transmitted across the universe, and Li Wenyuan, having just entered this galaxy, has naturally received it. Caraibo Interstellar Trading Company? Their tone suggests they wield significant power. He muses, recognizing that an enterprise capable of establishing trading markets throughout the cosmos must possess extraordinary strength. Otherwise, the roving pirates would have long since claimed their lives. If his conjectures are correct, although the Caraibo Interstellar Trading Company is nominally a business, there might likely surpass that of typical interstellar civilizations. It is possible that some ordinary civilizations are merely subsidiaries under their banner, with entire species devoted to supplying resources and labor to this enterprise. Contemplating this, Li Wenyuan grows increasingly cautious about his voyage. Not only must he ensure his safety, but he must also gather ample information. Just as he hesitates to approach the trading outpost, a communication request suddenly materializes on the ship's system. A communication from the outpost guards? Surely they won't expel me simply because my vessel once belonged to pirates? The thought fills him with trepidation, for he is uncertain whether the outpost will permit the docking of this erstwhile pirate ship. After a moment's deliberation, he decides to accept the communication. Their failure to respond with hostility suggests there may be room for negotiation. Once the connection is established, a robust alien, resembling a standing bear with a coat of brown fur and 4 eyes, appears on the screen. Upon his arrival, he immediately begins to berate. Hey, Tony, you filthy rat. When did you upgrade the ship's security system to such an extent? I couldn't even get in to send you an identification signal. This time, your guarantee fee must be doubled. No, quadrupled. In the midst of his tirade, the alien suddenly realizes something is amiss. His 4 eyes widening as he gazes at the synthetic being within the ship. Oh, I see now. That bunch of red-tongued fools has fallen apart. I knew they couldn't last long. Aside from Tony, who possesses a modicum of cleverness, the rest are merely a ragtag assembly. The bear-like alien raises his powerful paw to wipe his eyes, appearing deeply nostalgic and profoundly saddened. This scene left Li Wenyuan in a state of hesitation, contemplating whether he should make a swift exit. Should this extraterrestrial being be resolute in exacting vengeance upon the band of pirates, his vessel would stand no chance against such formidable intent. However, in the next moment, the alien reverted to its original form as if nothing had transpired, rendering the preceding display merely theatrical, with an arrogant expression concealing insatiable greed. You are a newcomer, perhaps unfamiliar with the protocols here. This pirate ship of yours is wanted by the Rayburn Federation, and under normal circumstances, I would not permit your entry. Yet, at Caraibo, we adhere to an open trade policy. The Rayburn Federation is hardly our adversary. Thus, as long as you pay the requisite deposit, you may traverse this star system freely. However, considering the shabby appearance of your vessel, it seems unlikely you possess anything of significant value to trade. As a concession for your first visit, I shall only impose a transaction tax of 30 as a deposit. Thereafter, it shall be standardized at 50. As he spoke, the alien narrowed its 4 eyes and, In a tone devoid of overt menace, casually added, "Otherwise, I cannot guarantee the safety of your pirate ship's departure from this place." The weight of his words regarding the pirate ship rendered Li Wenyuan momentarily silent. Within the confines of this virtual realm, he furrowed his brow, yearning to voice a retort. Yet, he soon acquiesced, having not anticipated the presence of such self-serving individuals even within the illustrious Universal Corporation. However, he recognized that provoking this alien, who resembled a security chief, would yield no advantageous outcome. The bear-like extraterrestrial regarded the ship with satisfaction, affixing a passage label to it. As Li Wenyuan maneuvered the ship closer to the space station, he reassured himself, even if that silver metal held substantial value, its diminutive size surely would not command much in return. Transaction tax? He mused that he might be fortunate to scrape together a few coins. As the ship approached, it attracted the attention of numerous passers-by. After all, such an antiquated model had long since fallen out of favor among the stars. Its presence was indeed a rare sight. While these onlookers whispered amongst themselves, the ship's systems guided it to dock at a designated starport within the space station. Once a portion of the synthetic beings disembarked, Li Wenyuan peered through their perspectives, gaining insight into the bustling interior of the space trading station. Countless bizarre species traversed the space. Some resembled mere boulders. Others were born with majestic wings. Some, akin to the synthetics, were robotic, yet their eyes sparkled with the light of intelligence. Others were essentially sponges, immersed in a machine tank that allowed them mobility, communicating with fellow beings through a loudspeaker. Witnessing the genuine interstellar scene, Li Wenyuan was profoundly astounded, scarcely able to fathom the existence of such a myriad of intelligent races within the cosmos. However, he soon found solace in the realization that the universe, vast and unfathomable, harbors a plethora of wonders. While silence may be the predominant melody of the cosmos, the emergence of new life is equally a significant presence within this expansive tapestry. Guiding the synthetic being, Li Wenyuan was swiftly captivated by the dazzling array of goods surrounding him. Ah, do they sell interstellar battleships? Let me examine the price. 1 million energy coins for an old-style frigate with a 10-year warranty? Is that considered cheap or expensive? He noticed the blueprints for a Level 2 civilization technology, micro-controlled nuclear fusion technology, priced at 600,000 energy coins. Truly, technology is invaluable. There are even planetary coordinates for sale. Suspected coordinates of a lost planet priced at 10 million energy coins. After scanning the surroundings, Li Wenyuan couldn't help but lament that he felt like a primitive, filled with curiosity about everything interstellar. Unfortunately, he was currently destitute. Although he coveted these wares, he had to first visit the official trading center, the Kairibo Trade Center. This grand complex, situated at the heart of the space station, attracted tens of thousands of visitors at all times and was indeed the true goal of Li Wenyuan's journey. Here, he would take his first step towards interstellar communication. Chapter 7. The Guardian. Greetings, esteemed guest. How may I assist you? Within the Kairibo Trade Center, two robots were engaged in conversation. One was the synthetic being controlled by Li Wenyuan, while the other was a service robot. Can you assess the value of these goods? Certainly. We provide valuation services at no cost. If you wish, please proceed to the appraisal room on the second floor. With the assistance of the service robot, Li Wenyuan quickly located the appraisal room and secured his turn. The so-called appraisal room was, in fact, a vast automated facility where countless individuals sat before their respective stations, placing their items for evaluation into a large box. The automated system would then seal the items in a confined space for scanning, displaying the results on a screen visible only to the individual at that station. This setup saved Li Wenyuan considerable effort. He straightforwardly retrieved a sample of the metal salvage from the wreckage of the cargo ship and placed it into the appraisal room. The results appeared almost instantaneously. Item appraised: Morton Standard Reinforced Alloy. Description: an alloy originating from the Morton system, regarded as one of the most inferior metal products. Estimated market price: 0.1 energy coins per ton. Indeed, it was worthless. Upon seeing the results, Li Wenyuan couldn't help but scoff. The alloy brought by the ship was now evidently insufficient to purchase even an old-style frigate. Undeterred, he instructed the synthetic being to present a second item for appraisal. This one resembled a firearm, yet its muzzle was shaped like a large trumpet. It was something he had previously confiscated from a pirate leader, seemingly a weapon of Level 2 civilization. Identified item: Micro-Power Jammer, Level 2. Description: a personal jamming wave emitter originating from a Level 2 civilization, now obsolete. Estimated market price: 100 energy coins. It turned out that this contraption was nothing more than junk. The item that Li Wenyuan had held such high hopes for was similarly deemed worthless, leaving him somewhat disheartened. Previously, the technological blueprint from the Level 2 civilization had fetched a staggering 60,000 energy coins, leading him to naively believe that this firearm would yield a comparable value. Disheartened, the synthesizer retrieved a third item awaiting appraisal: the mysterious metal he had excised from the wall nearby. He silently wished that the pirates would possess a keener eye for value, as he reluctantly placed the sample of the enigmatic metal into the identification chamber. This time, the evaluation process took an uncharacteristically long duration. Why was it taking so long? Could it be that its worth was so dismal that it was simply unidentifiable? As he waited, Li Wenyuan felt a chill of despair creeping over him. With a sense of trepidation, the appraisal results gradually revealed themselves before his eyes. Identified item, living metal. Description, an exceedingly precious strategic metal resource, a critical component in certain engineering endeavors, with no viable substitutes other than living metal. It was once believed to be generated solely under extremely harsh conditions, and is now known to have fixed supply channels from a few mysterious civilizations. The vast majority of living metal available on the market originates from interstellar adventurers exploring various desolate planets. Market price, 200,000 energy coins per kilogram. Buyout price for living metal refinement technology, negotiable. Remarks. Greetings, my friend. I am the head of this trading enclave. I am astonished to encounter genuine, living metal in your possession. Would you be interested in discussing this matter in person? We would be more than willing to offer you a satisfactory price. If you agree, please refrain from leaving the identification room temporarily. We will arrange for a designated individual to escort you to our VIP lounge. This unexpected delight genuinely elated Li Wenyuan. He had never anticipated that his attire could be worth such a fortune. For a fleeting moment, he was tempted to strip off all his garments and sell them as startup capital. However, this notion was swiftly dispelled. From the description, it was evident that living metal was an immensely significant resource. Should it flood the market in a short span, he, the seller, would undoubtedly attract scrutiny, placing his own safety in jeopardy. However, selling a small portion should not pose too great a risk. He was in dire need of funds to initiate repairs on his home planet. Otherwise, he would not have opted for such a perilous venture. Thus, following the instructions in the remarks, Li Wenyuan instructed the synthesizer to remain in place while he dispatched other synthesizers to explore the trading post in search of the resources he required. Before long, a group of distinguished individuals ascended to the second floor, where the identification room was located. Before them stood a cadre of robots, their surfaces glinting with a silvery sheen. Each precise movement of their metallic limbs echoed a uniformity that was almost unsettling. Their ocular cameras, designed for image acquisition, rotated incessantly, swiftly pinpointing the location of the synthetic being. Approaching with an air of mechanical efficiency, they intoned in flawless, robotic tones. Reception unit is in position, deviation value 299. Connection signal is stable, ready for integration. Target located on the 125th floor, route plan completed. The bewildering utterance left Li Wenyuan, who was controlling the synthetic, momentarily stunned, as he struggled to comprehend its meaning. Was it indicating that he should proceed to the 125th floor? He surmised that this was indeed the case, and thus maneuvered the synthetic into the elevator destined for that level. Meanwhile, the unseen controller of the robots found themselves equally perplexed. Isn't this the prevailing trend in the realm of intelligent machinery? Is this entity not inclined towards such a style? They lamented, realizing their failure to garner favorable impressions might result in a deduction from their meager salary. However, such concerns were of no consequence to Li Wenyuan, who ascended effortlessly to the 125th floor. Here lay the VIP lounge, a sanctuary reserved exclusively for those deemed partners by the Karibo Trading Company, and today, Li Wenyuan had joined their ranks. As the elevator doors parted, an alien figure greeted him, with large, fan-like ears and a visage adorned with hair and a beard. The creature's deep black eyes sparkled with a merchant's keen discernment. Below the chest, its form was replaced by mechanical prosthetics, partially cloaked in synthetic skin. Despite the embellishments of clothing, Li Wenyuan's advanced scanning capabilities revealed that at least 2/3 of the alien's body was mechanical. Greetings, my friend. I am the head here. You may call me Blaine, the manager proclaimed warmly, prompting Li Wenyuan to realize he had never paused to consider how to introduce himself. After a moment's hesitation, he resolved to adopt the code name he had previously shared with Lillian. I am the Guardian. The Guardian? The unusual term momentarily startled Blaine, whose expression swiftly morphed into one of understanding. His demeanor then shifted to one of solemnity, with a wave of his hand. The environment transformed from the initial VIP lounge into a setting reminiscent of a conference hall. It became clear that the previous scene had merely been a projection, and this conference hall represented the true nature of the space. Subsequently, Blaine abandoned his earlier warmth, adopting a formal tone as he intoned. I comprehend your civilization's aversion to ambiguity, so I shall be forthright. This time, I am here as an ambassador of Karibo, representing the Karibo Trading Company. To negotiate the acquisition of all living metal in your possession, whatever quantity you possess, I am prepared to procure. You are welcome to present your demands, and I shall endeavor to accommodate them. After he spoke, several indistinct projections suddenly appeared in the conference hall, seemingly depicting senior personnel from Corvo, who had come to discuss the impending transaction. Witnessing such a formal scene, Li Wenyuan in the virtual realm furrowed his brow, and after a moment of contemplation, he commanded the android to speak slowly. The process has been arranged. Chapter 8. The announcement. The abrupt shift to the VIP room heightened Li Wenyuan's alertness, gradually enlightening him. The extraterrestrial before him, identified as Blainen, likely perceived the android under his control as an emissary from a civilization of intelligent machines. This civilization, composed entirely of sentient machinery, typically embodies a Gestalt consciousness, with only a handful of exceptional individuals possessing semi-independent awareness. In the interstellar age, the bionic skin covering androids offers minimal concealment, making it relatively easy to discern their robotic nature. After careful consideration, Li Wenyuan resolved to proceed according to their assumptions. If he could convince them that the representative seated across from them epitomized a civilization rather than an individual, his chances of survival would greatly improve. He has always approached interstellar society with the worst possible malice in mind. The process has been arranged. Li Wenyuan mimicked the programmatic tone he frequently encountered in the virtual world, observing Blanen's expression shift to one of relief. He then solemnly posed his first question. May we first inquire how much living metal you have available for trade? As one of the rarest metals in the cosmos, living metal has always been in high demand yet scarce, monopolized by a few larger galactic enterprises, with only sporadic contributions from interstellar adventurers. Although Corvo boasts considerable strength, its late arrival in the field precluded it from partaking in this lucrative market. Thus, when news emerged of living metal being available from Outpost 13 in this fringe star system, Corvo's upper echelons immediately recognized its significance. Upon discovering that the source of the living metal was not an adventurer, but rather an entity from the civilization of intelligent machines, they felt as though they had struck gold. In the interstellar realm, aside from the enigmatic ancient civilizations, no society would ever forfeit the opportunity to acquire living metal. Its rarity is not merely a factor. It is also critical to certain technologies essential for civilization advancement, which necessitate a sufficient stock of living metal. Contemplating his next move, Li Wenyuan decided to utilize methods likely exclusive to the intelligent machine civilization to display the living metal he had brought. The android's ocular implant shimmered briefly before projecting a beam of light that manifested a square block of silvery metal at the center of the conference room, accompanied by a plethora of data annotations, regardless of whether those extraterrestrials could comprehend them. Blanen's pupils constricted, and with an expression of disbelief, he exclaimed, "Such a large piece? The quantity in question is approaching the annual output of the entire galaxy," a notion that elicited a sound of astonishment from Li Wenyuan, who soon found himself thoroughly intrigued by this metallic substance. After all, within the vastness of the cosmos, a cubic meter of living metal pales in comparison to mere grains of sand. Why, then, does it incite such fierce competition among interstellar civilizations? Despite his curiosity, the android under his control maintained an impassive demeanor, showing no signs of alteration in its signals. The indistinct projections of the senior executives at Karibo began to waver, as if engaged in hushed whispers. After a brief interval, Blaney appeared to receive directives from higher authorities and proposed, "We would be most willing to engage in trade with you, offering an infinite acquisition of living metal at a premium of 50. Should you choose to appoint our Karibo trading enterprise as your exclusive distributor, this price could be elevated to 200. What are your thoughts on this? A premium of 200? Li Wenyuan in the virtual realm was momentarily taken aback, marveling at the sheer profitability of living metal, yet he declined Blaney's proposal. He himself was uncertain how to produce this material, and what would he do if he needed it later? Moreover, he understood the wisdom of discretion. Should this interstellar enterprise ascertain his capability to supply living metal in bulk, they might very well turn against him in an instant. Li Wenyuan's response seemed to align perfectly with their expectations, as Blaney continued unperturbed. While it is regrettable that we could not finalize this agreement, Karibo will always remain your finest trading partner. Now, regarding the purchase of this batch of living metal, would you prefer the energy currency to be transferred to your civilization's credit account via the Interstellar Bank, or would you wish to transport it yourselves? Account? Transport? Li Wenyuan, who controlled the android, was momentarily taken aback. After considerable contemplation, he resolved to respond thus. "We shall not accept energy currency for the time being. Our target requirements are Callus Standard Reinforced Alloy, Level 3 Energy Core, Zilu." At this moment, he was not well versed in the intricacies of these transactions, but he understood that minimizing the exposure of his information would compel other civilizations to regard him with speculative caution rather than immediate hostility. He intended to draw the resources back to his home planet and remain secluded for at least 50 years, awaiting a significant opportunity before venturing into the interstellar arena. Upon revealing the materials required for the repair of the energy facilities on his home planet, a peculiar atmosphere enveloped the entire conference room. Not only did Blaney gaze at the android in astonishment, but even the projections of the Karibo executives exhibited signs of agitation, seemingly embroiled in debate over his demands. Blaney could not help but reconfirm, "Are you saying that you require Callus Standard Reinforced Alloy, as well as Zilu?" The unusual reactions of these individuals caused Li Wenyuan in the virtual domain to feel a surge of tension, and he instinctively nodded in affirmation. In that moment, the occupants of the conference room exchanged perplexed glances. While Blaine spoke with a tone laden with regret, the Calise system perished 5 million years ago and no longer produces enhanced alloys. However, the limited quantities of SODF enhanced alloy currently utilized in our society can meet the necessary requirements, which we are able to provide. As for Zello's mention of such substances, Blaine regarded the synthetic being with a peculiar gaze, appraising it thoroughly. Concerning the hallucinogenic gas associated with Zello, one might have to consult those foolish idealistic civilizations. Though I must caution that those metaphysical charlatans do not engage with sentient machines as amiably as we do. His insinuations left Li Wenyuan somewhat bewildered, yet despite this, the negotiations continued, albeit with some hitches. Upon the conclusion of their dealings, as Li Wenyuan prepared to depart, Blaine unexpectedly approached him with an amiable demeanor, extending a hand as if to initiate a handshake. Due to his overly natural posture, Li Wenyuan did not hesitate and reciprocated the gesture. In that instant, Blaine appeared to be momentarily stunned, his eyes reflecting a vacant gaze. It was not until the synthetic being had taken its leave that he gradually returned to a state of normalcy, subsequently collapsing onto the floor. His eyes bloodshot and gasping for air. Disregarding his physical weakness, he promptly initiated communication with his superior. How did it go? A failure. The hacking program within me seems to have been swallowed by a black hole, yielding no response. Moreover, I have an unsettling premonition of being counter-hacked. Had I not promptly severed all connections to my prosthetics, the entity behind this might have already accessed the local network. What a terrifying civilization. Could even the curator's hacking skills prove ineffective? No wonder they can so freely produce such living metal. It appears tracing back to their origins is now beyond reach. You must hasten to replace your prosthetics to guard against any potential backdoors they may have left behind. I have already begun that process, Blaine replied, deftly disassembling his mechanical limbs while instructing his subordinates to procure new components. Then, as if recalling something, he inquired. Somewhat perplexed, as per your directive, I tested him with the handshake. He exhibited no unusual behavior. Is there an issue with that? After a moment of silence, his superior on the other end responded thoughtfully, no anomaly, which is precisely the greatest anomaly. 5 million years ago, Khalees and Zello, he murmured these words. Suddenly struck by a realization, and inquired with intensity, what did he claim to be? The sudden gravity in his superior's tone caught Blaine off guard, prompting him to respond swiftly. He identified himself as the Guardian. At that, his superior displayed a look of comprehension. Then, as if conducting an interrogation, queried Blaine. You are familiar with the names Observer, Watcher, Voyager, and Silent One, correct? Blaine promptly responded, indeed, these are the 4 most enigmatic civilizations in the galaxy. No one knows when they came into existence. All that is certain is that their economic, technological, and military prowess is akin to that of celestial deities. To them, ordinary interstellar civilizations are no more significant than mere ants. His answer was astute. The vast majority of the living metals available in the market originate from them, ensuring that the hope for civilization's advancement does not wane. Blaine comprehended every word spoken by his superior, yet felt a perplexing disconnection, uncertain as to why such statements were made. Then, in a light-hearted storytelling manner, his superior recounted, in my youth, I ventured through the stars alongside my grandfather, exploring numerous star systems and witnessing many fascinating wonders. Among them, one particularly striking memory is of a mural dating back millions of years, depicting a great civilization battling cosmic threats. The tale concludes with this civilization mysteriously vanishing from the universe, leaving no trace of their whereabouts. The handshake, a gesture of warmth I learned from that mural, is unique. It seems that apart from us, no other civilization in the galaxy employs this custom. His superior's words began to evoke a captivating conjecture within Blaine, his expression illuminating with intrigue. Could it be, he pondered, that despite being merely a hypothesis, the name Guardians bears a striking resemblance to those mysterious civilizations? Blaine suddenly realized the implication, only to be met with a wave of doubt. But why would such an advanced civilization require resource exchanges with us? Shouldn't they lack for nothing? A soft chuckle emanated from the communications device as his superior clarified. The thought processes of intelligent mechanical civilizations differ vastly from ours. It is challenging for organic beings to grasp their inner motivations. And have you forgotten? It is we who invited them to trade, not the other way around. Their so-called needs could very well be mere whims of collectors. After all, the necessity for Zello's intelligent machines sounds utterly absurd, does it not? Blaine was struck with sudden clarity, affirming, you are correct. The products of such idealistic civilizations indeed appear far-fetched to a materialistic worldview, eliciting derision from every materialist. In summary, the intelligent mechanical civilization known as the Guardians is akin to the enigmatic Observers. They should be included in our list of esteemed allies. Should we encounter their machines again, we must extend every courtesy to leave a favorable impression. Securing even a modicum of their endorsement could elevate our reputation across the galaxy. As for those who look down upon us, his superior scoffed, one day, they shall comprehend who truly reigns as the greatest merchant in this expanse of stars. The cold and cutting words of his superior made Blaine involuntarily retract his head slightly, yet he soon showcased a smile, for he had envisioned the splendid offerings that this guardian civilization would bestow upon him under his tireless servitude. He was destined to become an influential figure within Cerberus, ascending to heights he had previously deemed unimaginable. Chapter 9. Idealist Civilization. Upon departing from the VIP lounge, Li Wenyuan fell into a brief reverie. The resources necessary to repair the 4th-level singularity were merely a gram of Zerlo away. Yet this elusive substance seemed to halt his progress, leaving him in a state of lamentation. Even a cosmic enterprise like Cerberus was unable to procure Zerlo, and he found himself at a loss for how to proceed. With hope for repair dwindling, he could only guide the synthetic being within the trading station to seek out visitors from the idealist civilization. According to Blaine, Zerlo was exclusively produced by these idealist entities. However, it was hard to believe that such a future world could witness the idealist civilization evolving into an interstellar age. Li Wenyuan's education in his previous life had instilled in him a steadfast materialistic worldview. He regarded the so-called idealist civilization as merely nominal. In truth, they were still traversing the path of science. Yet, as he clung to this notion, an unexpected voice resonated beside the synthetic being. In some respects, we too are materialists. However, our materialism appears to you as the ramblings of madmen. This sudden voice startled Li Wenyuan within the virtual realm, prompting him to glance around. Yet he saw nothing amiss. I am right here. Perhaps your mechanical eye requires some repairs, for can you not see what is right before you? At that moment, Li Wenyuan noticed a diminutive fairy floating at the chest of the synthetic being. At first glance, she seemed to be merely hovering, but the synthetic's mechanical eye flickered, revealing that she possessed 2 pairs of dragonfly-like wings that flitted rapidly behind her. The high frequency of their movement made them nearly imperceptible to the naked eye. Yet under the mechanical gaze, it appeared merely as a series of slow-motion frames. The reason he likened her to a fairy was that Li Wenyuan found her strikingly reminiscent of the ethereal beings he had encountered in Western fantasy films, flitting about in flower-laden meadows. What astonished him most was that this fairy-like extraterrestrial bore an uncanny resemblance to humanity, both in form and visage. This encounter, reminiscent of meeting an old friend in a foreign land, momentarily made him forget how he had been drawn to this fairy. The alien, resembling a fairy, raised an eyebrow with curiosity and remarked, "You are indeed a sentient machine, rather than one of those semi-cybernetic beings? I had assumed that only organic life could be detected through psychic signals, yet I did not expect a sentient machine to emit such signals as well. This is quite a remarkable discovery. It seems we must reconsider the principles of psychic theory presented in our textbooks." Upon hearing her words, Li Wenyuan was suddenly struck by the realization that this enchanting creature seemed capable of probing into his thoughts. What manner of situation is this? Is it magic or some form of unknown technology? As the thought emerged, he instinctively braced himself, his synthetic gaze dissecting the structure of the fairy's body, simultaneously adding a new species to the long-neglected biological compendium. "Oh dear," the fairy lamented, her expression filled with regret. "Why have you suddenly become so wary? If this continues, I will be unable to read your mental signals any longer. How about I offer you some compensation? You could indulge me in a longer conversation, providing me with more material for my thesis." Though the fairy's demeanor was earnest, Li Wenyuan had lost all desire to linger, swiftly vanishing into the throngs of people. The fairy, upon his departure, appeared quite disappointed, as though she had missed a monumental discovery. Had she known, she would have refrained from alerting him. This way, she could have studied him further. Yet, who could resist the allure of engaging with a sentient machine? Alas, she hoped to encounter more such fairies swaying through the crowd. While everyone else scattered in fear as if confronted by a ferocious beast, the fairy melted away into the crowd. And only after her exit did whispers arise among the bystanders. If I am not mistaken, that appears to be a member of the idealistic civilization known as the Court of Ferris. The last time we saw them was at a scientific conference. Hush. That conference reportedly ended in discord, and no one knows what truly transpired. Ever since, this group of idealists has almost entirely withdrawn from external interactions, rarely making an appearance in the interstellar realm. Nevertheless, nearly all idealistic civilizations remain under the protection of the Watchers, avoiding significant conflicts. However, are they not merely a congregation of eccentric zealots? It might be wise to keep a distance, lest one be infected by their peculiarities. Unbeknownst to Li Wenyuan, who hurriedly completed his transaction with the Korai bow, preparing his spacecraft for departure, his encounter with the fairy had unveiled numerous perils in this vast universe. He had once believed that, with the advanced protective capabilities of his synthetic form, the risk of information leakage was non-existent. Yet, the idealistic civilization had struck him hard, employing an unknown method, perhaps technological, to extract his thoughts, a concept he had never before encountered. I must return swiftly. The depths of the interstellar realm are too profound for me to navigate at present. I shall return to this cosmic stage when I possess the strength to broaden my horizons. After inspecting his cargo and confirming its integrity, Li Wenyuan secured a ship laden with reinforced alloys and a third-level energy core preserved within a specialized container, then activated his spacecraft. At the very moment he departed the starport, a bear-like alien in the security room, awaiting good news, received word of the pirate ship's exit. Initially taken aback, he soon erupted in fury, unable to fathom that anyone would dare disregard his threats and depart without paying the requisite guarantee fee. He swiftly activated communications with his subordinates while also reaching out to a colleague in the trade department. Eager to ascertain the trading volume of the pirate vessel at the exchange, he had firmly resolved to impose a guarantee fee of 95, otherwise, he would never allow the ship to depart. "Hello, bearded Mao?" It's me. I need you to check something for me. Such audacious individuals must be made to understand who truly holds sway here. The person on the other end of the line readily agreed, but after a moment, in a subtle tone, inquired, Mao Xiong, are you certain you want to levy taxes on this ship? Of course. Otherwise, where would my dignity go? A bunch of newcomers thinking they can get away with this? Mao Xiong remained undeterred, seemingly fearless. After a brief silence, Mao Huzi continued, all right then, you're bold. This vessel's trading volume is 22.5 billion energy coins. I've never seen such numbers from our outlying star systems. 22.5 billion. Mao Xiong shot up from his seat in the security office, his avaricious eyes now wide with astonishment. You usually take 30, right? Since they've crossed you. You must take at least 50, yes? TSK, over 10 billion. Don't forget to lend a hand to your brothers. Mao Huzi chuckled, seemingly relishing the idea of Mao Xiong's impending doom. Meanwhile, Mao Xiong was drenched in cold sweat, trembling as he shouted into the communications device, get back here. No one is allowed to leave the port. Whoever dares to depart will be thrown into the stellar furnace. His subordinates, who were eager to apprehend the wanted criminals, froze at his command and quickly complied, remaining within the spaceport. Not so tough now, huh? What do you usually tell those pirates? That this line of work doesn't last long, and they eventually fall? Looks like you've stepped on a landmine this time. Mao Huzi's gleeful voice echoed in Mao Xiong's ears, but he paid it no mind, pacing swiftly within the security office, contemplating how to remedy the situation. As the captain of the security team, his monthly salary wasn't even in energy coins, but in a form of electronic currency circulating within the Karibo system. Energy coins were only used in interstellar trade, yet even one energy coin was considered exorbitant in the eyes of the average person. Even Mao Xiong's annual income couldn't afford a single one. Fortunately, his unique position as the security chief in this trade enclave afforded him the opportunity to covertly levy taxes from those unlicensed vessels. And here, unlicensed ships were in abundance. While this place was officially a trading station, it functioned as a haven for a multitude of interstellar adventurers engaging in trade and resupply, with Karibo's trading partners primarily catering to them. These reckless explorers might never return to their home planet, and their ships often failed to update their electronic signatures, thus being regarded as unlicensed vessels. The bear-like creature relied on tax collection to generate an additional income of 1 or 200 energy coins annually. While the amount seemed modest, it was sufficient for him to acquire dozens of buildings on his home planet under someone else's name. However, now, with trade volumes reaching hundreds of billions, he dared not make any moves, regardless of his courage. Thus, he instructed his subordinates to reopen the starport to escort a pirate spaceship, while simultaneously sending an email to the previous group, hoping for a chance at redemptive acknowledgement. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan, piloting the spaceship and preparing to activate the hyperspace engine to journey to the next star system, received the email. Upon noticing that it was from a guard at this location, he promptly discarded it into the recycling bin. He had neither the inclination nor the time to engage in trivial disputes with such insignificant figures. His sole desire was to return home swiftly. If taxes were to be levied, so be it. After all, Li Wenyuan had deposited all those energy coins with Karibo, and he did not believe that an alien resembling a security chief would dare to tamper with such a substantial sum. Moreover, the guardian civilization he represented had already enjoyed significant attention from Karibo. It was a stroke of luck that they had not sought retribution from the security chief. Once the hyperspace engine ignited, Li Wenyuan's spaceship vanished without a trace from the star system. Chapter 10. Energy Output 1000. An antiquated pirate spaceship traversed the vastness of the starry sea, ultimately entering the atmosphere of a blue planet. This vessel, under Li Wenyuan's command, had returned fully loaded from Karibo's trading post to its home planet. Energy Facility. Level 4 Singularity in Zone 91. Repair missing material, 1 gram of Zerlo. Observing that this easily reparable facility still lacked materials, Li Wenyuan felt a profound sense of helplessness. He contemplated shutting down the automatic defense system and reallocating energy to the industrial sector. Yet, this method of robbing Peter to pay Paul was excessively time-consuming. Was there a way to acquire Zerlo without engaging with those idealistic civilizations? The thought that such ethereal aliens could even read the thoughts of his digitized consciousness sent chills down his spine. If unguarded, he might as well be laid bare. As he pondered, Li Wenyuan accessed the database entry on Zerlo. Zerlo, description, an inert gas that does not react with most substances. It appears only idealistic civilizations can utilize Zerlo correctly. Why would the repair of an energy facility necessitate such a substance, which only idealistic civilizations could accurately employ? Li Wenyuan found himself utterly perplexed and sighed, intending to close the interface when suddenly, a new green notification appeared above the myriad of red alerts. Intrigued, he clicked on the message, which caused his breath to momentarily cease. Rare resource detected on the planet. Zerlo. Please address promptly. Was this an opportunity that had come without effort after searching tirelessly? Li Wenyuan was astounded to discover that Zerlo existed on his home planet, feeling as if fate itself had intervened on his behalf. Immediately, he began to examine the location of Zelo. This was the very place where Zelo had been discovered, gradually magnified within the virtual realm. and a peculiar expression flickered in Li Wenyuan's eyes. If Zello appeared here, the situation would become rather intriguing. At that moment, Lillian, who was engaged in her daily prayers, suddenly sneezed and looked around in confusion. So, by merely praying each day, do you exhale such gas? Upon hearing the guardian's inquiry, Lillian trembled and nodded. When she was called over unexpectedly, she feared she had done something wrong, which made her demeanor timid and apprehensive. Li Wenyuan, on the other hand, found himself engulfed in shock, feeling as though he had witnessed something that defied his understanding. The beast girl before him, after being scanned repeatedly by the synthetic beings, was undeniably an utterly ordinary creature. Yet, she was capable of naturally producing Zello. This left Li Wenyuan in a state of bewilderment. It was simply inconceivable. Do you know where this purple gas originates from? He ventured to ask, but upon seeing the blank look in Lillian's eyes, he understood everything. Never mind. We can discuss this later. For now, you should return and remain calm. Feel free to voice any needs you may have. When you pray in the future, remember to whisper my name, and I shall arrange for someone to collect this gas. Do you understand? Yes, I understand, Lillian replied, shrinking her head, her beast ears equipped with a neural wave converter, trembling nervously. Observing her fearful demeanor, Li Wenyuan sighed, pondering whether he had exerted himself too forcefully during the earlier performance. And he promptly produced a small electronic device resembling a mobile phone. It was a gaming console, apparently unearthed by the synthetic beings while clearing the ruins, seemingly a relic from a museum. After scanning it, he discovered it contained many futuristic versions of classic games, likely used by humans of that era to pass the time. This is for you, a token of gratitude for your significant assistance. You'll figure it out in no time, within a few days. You won't be able to live without it. He was confident that the sheltered Lillian would soon become engrossed, ultimately transforming into a gaming addict under the influence of these incomprehensible video games. Subsequently, Li Wenyuan directed his attention towards the restoration project of the Level 4 Singularity. Currently, apart from the synthetic beings, there were only a handful of maintenance robots on the planet. He had yet to find the machinery required for constructing large edifices. And in desperation, he had no choice but to assign all tasks to the resilient, tireless, and multifunctional synthetic beings. Thus, as time flowed by, the day of completion for the Level 4 Singularity's restoration finally arrived. Gazing at the immense structure standing on the ground, Li Wenyuan felt tears welling up in his eyes. How long has it been? He was finally on the verge of achieving a modest goal since arriving in this world, no longer troubled by concerns over energy. The completed Level 4 Singularity spans an astonishing area of 10,000 square kilometers, surpassing the size of an ordinary city, entirely occupying the 91st district, which can be said to exist solely for this monumental structure. Rather than merely being a building, the Level 4 Singularity resembles a vast complex, interconnected by a labyrinth of pipelines linking various functional zones, alongside an extensive network of conduits for energy transfer and distribution. Prior to its restoration, Li Wenyuan couldn't help but marvel at the relatively minor extent of the Singularity's damage, primarily concentrated at critical nodes, allowing the utilization of a mere 50,000 tons of reinforced alloy. Had it been one of those nearly obliterated facilities, such a quantity of alloy would have produced little more than a faint sound. Now, it was time to witness the results. He maneuvered the synthetic being, gradually entering a towering structure at the heart of the facility. This tower serves as the core of the Level 4 Singularity, with the entire 10,000 square kilometers dedicated to this edifice, which occupies less than 5,000 square meters. Within the tower, the synthetic being approached an energy core suspended in midair, ensnared by multiple layers of fields. The previously acquired Level 3 energy core was positioned here, marking the next critical step. He held a specially designed canister filled with a violet gas, inserting it into the interface. The internal gas flowed into the field, gradually enveloping the energy core as pressure shifted. What had initially been a modest vial of Zello began to fill the entire field, retaining its mysterious and ethereal hue throughout. Subsequently, the field, now controlling the internal gases and energy core, commenced a rotation, accelerating and intensifying, accompanied by currents coursing through the field, striking the rapidly spinning gases. An explosive sound reverberated throughout the facility. Within the field, everything had become an emptiness, with the previous Zello gas and energy core fading into what seemed an illusion. Yet, a vast energy began to leak from a nearly imperceptible point at the center of the field. The hum of the facility's activation emanated from the Level 4 Singularity, gradually radiating outward. Those long-dormant pathways trembled with the surge of energy, dust cascading away to reveal secrets buried for years. The entire planet seemed to revive with the influx of energy, beginning to pulsate with life once more. In the virtual realm, Li Wenyuan gazed at the soaring energy output, finally revealing a long-awaited smile. Current planetary energy output, approximately 120,000 energy units. Automated defense system energy consumption, 800 energy units. Data corruption energy consumption, 72,000 energy units. Current energy yield, approximately 20,050 energy units. The energy produced by this Level 4 Singularity is truly astonishing. However, The divisions for scientific research and industrial zones have resumed their operations, and the next step should involve considering that object in the sky. Chapter 11. The technology tree. With the restoration of the fourth-level singularity, the sudden influx of energy allowed Li Wenyuan to indulge in its abundance. The regions and facilities that had been forced to shut down due to energy shortages were reactivated. Yet, even with this revival, energy remained plentiful, transforming the previously dire circumstances. The universal database has been fully restored and is now connecting to the core database. Warning: unable to connect to the core database. The universal database has been set as the primary database. Database module is now online. The Guardian Matrix restoration is complete. 25. Additional Guardian permissions have been unlocked. A vast amount of energy surged forth, benefiting primarily the Guardian Matrix overseen by Li Wenyuan. As the entity responsible for ensuring the planet's normal operations, he had previously found it rather impoverished, lacking essential resources, and resorting to a patchwork of solutions to maintain a positive energy balance. It became evident that the damage here had been too severe. The Guardian Matrix had lost connection with numerous facilities, inadvertently leading to the disabling of all permissions related to them. Since his arrival, the Guardian Matrix had been incomplete, with only a fraction of its functions operational. However, as he addressed some pressing issues, the Matrix gradually began to regain its former capabilities. Are new functions available for use? Li Wenyuan's gaze shifted towards the virtual realm, where an additional program had emerged. Research program? Is it designed to allow me to set objectives for those research zones, enabling them to operate autonomously? He comprehended the purpose of this newly added program, which appeared to be linked to directives for the research divisions. The research divisions are essentially a seamless, automated city that requires no human intervention. With merely a command from Li Wenyuan, the city would operate autonomously, endeavoring to resolve the issues he had established. The research divisions could even function without providing research materials, as they possessed dedicated virtual worlds for scientific inquiry, conducting all research within these realms through countless simulations and trial and error processes to derive the most probable outcomes, achieving an accuracy approaching 100. Uncertain of the effectiveness of its research, he pondered finding something to test it on. Suddenly, he recalled the additional phrases that had appeared when he previously infiltrated the system of the crashed spaceship. New technologies have been added to the technology tree? If memory serves, the technology tree should be within the database. Following this thought, he accessed the universal database. Before him, the virtual world abruptly revealed a vast expanse of interconnected boxes, extending upwards with increasingly dense networks, resembling a tree full of flourishing branches and leaves. At the base level, the foundational technologies had all been illuminated, from which a new array of potential technologies had emerged. Li Wenyuan swiftly directed his attention to the area he was most concerned about, aerospace technology, and a smile soon graced his face. Basic Spaceship Framework, Technology Level 0. Introduction. Through the analysis of the wreckage of crashed ships and pirate vessels, we have preliminarily grasped the construction methods of this small, primitive spaceship. Potential technologies: engineering ship, 999, transport ship, 999, basic spaceship, 999. These potential technologies are displayed in a gray, locked state on the technological tree, representing the most likely new advancements that can be developed based on existing technologies after scientific area calculations. Currently, only the top 3 technologies with the highest success probabilities are shown, but upon the completion of any single research project, the remaining placeholders will be filled with potential technologies. These potential technologies will then be positioned as illuminated advancements on the technological tree, giving rise to new possibilities. This implies that with just one foundational technology, I could potentially derive all subsequent technologies through research. Li Wenyuan gazed at the technological tree with great interest, quickly dispelling this naive notion. As one ascends the technological tree, the probability of successfully researching those potential technologies diminishes due to an insufficient foundation of basic data. The high-level potential technologies are essentially no different from mere figments of imagination. For instance, he noticed a technology called the Celestial Curtain Battleship, which resides on the technological tree of the basic spaceship framework. Its technology level has reached 8, placing it in a notably high position within the entire tree. However, its success rate stands at a flat 0, merely serving as a filler to maintain the integrity of the technological tree. In fact, once the technology levels reach 3 or 4, the success probabilities for potential technologies drop significantly, hovering around 10%, indicating that the system itself is skeptical about the feasibility of researching such technologies. Let us experiment with the new function. Research plan initiated. Engineering ship. Process scheduled. Scientific Area 1 is now operational. Research complete. Engineering ship. New technology added to the technological tree. Li Wenyuan, who was about to engage in other tasks, paused momentarily, his expression shifting to one of astonishment. So soon? It hadn't even been a second. Opening the technological tree once more, he saw that a new engineering ship technology had been illuminated above the basic spaceship framework. Upon clicking into it, he was greeted with a plethora of detailed blueprints and reference data, along with simulation clips from the research virtual world. In awe of the efficiency of the scientific area, Li Wenyuan decided to research all technologies with a success probability of 999. The previously dim technological tree began to radiate brightly from the bottom upwards, with the illumination speed only slowing down upon reaching the 4th level. At this point, nearly all technologies at levels 0 and 1 had been thoroughly researched. When he selected a technology named All-Seeing Cloak at level 2, the scientific area conveyed a requirement of 15 days for completion. Phew, finally some respite. But the gains have been substantial. Indeed, once energy supply is secured, everything follows suit. He sighed, casting his gaze towards another facility awaiting restoration. Although there remained numerous level 4 singularities on the planet in need of repair, for Li Wenyuan, whose energy reserves had already overflowed, something of greater significance was required. Industrial facility, dimensional fabricator in Zone 2. Missing repair materials, approximately 360,000 tons of callous standard reinforced alloy. 1 gram of Zerlo. This was the facility Li Wenyuan deemed most suitable for restoration among the many awaiting repair. According to the description, this dimensional fabricator could consume minimal energy while directly extracting resources from other parallel universes. Though Li Wenyuan was unaware of its underlying principles, it was of paramount importance to him at that moment. In the absence of a stable resource production method, this machine that conjured resources from nothing was truly a coveted asset. Once the industrial zone began operations, I was able to synthesize callous reinforced alloy. Yet the fundamental resources required for synthesis could only be temporarily scavenged from the planet. The thought of overseeing a multitude of synthesizers rummaging through refuse across the planet weighed heavily upon Li Wenyuan. Chapter 12. Unexpected visitor in the desolate star domain. A vessel that had traversed thousands of light years once again activated its hyperspace engine. Inside the ship, a team of approximately 4 or 5 members sat in silence. After a prolonged pause, one member finally spoke. Since departing from our home planet, we have traversed 25 star domains, exploring 330 planets across 156 star systems. Excluding those we deemed worthless, we still have at least 500 planets. So, Copper, where are the ancient relics you spoke of? The atmosphere among the team grew noticeably colder in response to this inquiry, with the other members regarding the speaker, an exceptionally large, green-hued being with remarkably large eyes, expressionless. His features indicated that he belonged to the emerging interstellar race known as the Rayburn. However, the team members showed no inclination to offer leniency simply because he differed from them in species. Copper, the Rayburn, was still obliged to provide them with an explanation. After a moment of silence, Copper slowly articulated his thoughts. I understand your dissatisfaction, but you have all reviewed my father's research manuscripts. At that time, everyone believed it was worth a try. We have not yet reached the midpoint of our exploratory journey, and you wish to turn back? But there must be some glimmer of hope. In these past 2 years, we have found not even a single trace. How are we to justify our return? You have no patience whatsoever. I cannot fathom how you managed to gain admission to the United University. What did you say? As the argument threatened to escalate, the de facto leader of the team suddenly interjected. Enough. Everyone quiet. The conference room fell silent at once. Yet the evident defiance in their expressions suggested that peace was only a temporary reprieve. Upon witnessing the situation, the leader rubbed his temples and remarked with resignation. At that time, we unanimously voted in favor. It is indeed premature to reconsider now. Hearing this, hope instantly illuminated Copper's large eyes. However, the subsequent statement doused his enthusiasm like a bucket of cold water. Yet, we cannot afford to squander time in endless searches. Let us explore all the star systems within this region, and then we shall return. Professor, Copper exclaimed. The weary professor, who led the team, replied. I am no longer young, and have little time to delve into new discoveries. Out of respect for your father, I am willing to navigate this research vessel alongside you to explore one planet after another. However, I have my own work to pursue. If we truly stumble upon that ancient relic mentioned in your father's manuscript, that would be fortunate. Yet, statistically speaking, you are aware that the probability approaches near 0. So, this time, please heed my advice, alright? Gazing at this elder, who was almost like a second father to him, Copper opened his mouth, but ultimately could only nod silently. Meanwhile, the young man with whom he had previously quarreled displayed a mocking smile, seemingly reveling in Copper's moment of defeat. At that moment, the spaceship's hyperspace engine completed its charging, propelling the vessel at faster-than-light speed toward the next star system. Lillian, where are your daily prayers? Apologies, Guardian. I overslept. Within the artificial forest, Li Wenyuan controlled a synthetic being, brandishing a found branch as he lectured the engrossed Lillian, who was lost in her game. This artificial forest was her dwelling place. According to her, it resembled the environment of her homeland, which she adored. The forest consistently yielded synthetic fruits and fresh water, alleviating any concerns regarding Lillian's survival. Thus, Li Wenyuan decided to leave her to it. However, the gaming console he had previously gifted her proved to be excessively captivating. When Li Wenyuan noticed the daily influx of Zerlo dwindling, he dispatched someone to the artificial forest in search of Lillian, the only remaining Zerlo producer, to inquire about the matter. To his surprise, he found Lillian nestled in a tree hollow, fast asleep. So, You've been so absorbed in your game that it has led to your insufficient sleep, and you've chosen to use your prayer time to catch up on rest. Yes, yes, Lillian admitted, acknowledging that she could not deceive the Guardian, nodding sincerely. Li Wenyuan, his expression darkening, retrieved her concealed gaming console from the hollow and lightly tapped her head with the branch, saying, "Do you wish to play? Do you know why I allowed you to have it? Because, Lillian, you can provide that purple gas." At this moment, Lillian suddenly recalled that this Guardian was a ruthless individual. If she lost her utility, her fate would be dire. The more she thought about it, the more frightened she became, and she promptly knelt on the ground, trembling as she uttered, "Yes, I am sorry. Lillian will never make mistakes again. Please, do not harm me." This scene took Li Wenyuan by surprise. He initially intended to clarify the nature of their relationship to Lillian, to help her understand that while playing games was permissible, the sanctity of prayer must be upheld. However, he did not anticipate that Lillian would misconstrue his intentions as a threat to her existence, leaving her utterly terrified. It seemed he had been a bit too forceful before. Li Wenyuan sighed as he observed the trembling beast girl before him and knelt down, gently stroking her head with his synthetic hand. He had never considered taking action against the sole living being on this planet, not only because of her ability to produce zealous, but also due to her remarkably human-like biological form, which evoked both his concern and affection. In truth, even if Lillian were incapable of generating zealous, Li Wenyuan would still safeguard her until he possessed the means to venture into the stars. He could not fathom that within this galaxy, there could exist another creature that had traversed land after surviving multiple extinctions and relentless battles for existence, evolving into a being with flexible limbs and a visage akin to humanity, ultimately ascending to the apex of the food chain and establishing a civilization. In Li Wenyuan's heart, he firmly believed that Lillian and her kind were products of humanity, or at the very least, intricately connected to it. He envisioned a day when he would arrive on Lillian's home planet, seeking traces of humanity there, with Lillian as the ideal guide. Thus, he crouched down and softly comforted her. Perhaps his soothing words took effect, for Lillian eventually lifted her head, though her cat ears drooped forlornly, presenting a pitiful sight. With a sigh, Li Wenyuan handed her a new gaming console, one brimming with a greater variety of games. "Here, take this and enjoy, when you feel like it. Offer a prayer. If not, that is perfectly fine. Zealous will suffice for now. You need not toil endlessly. After all, there's no need for a cat to work." As he spoke, a thought struck him, and he cautioned, "In the future, do not wander away from this forest. There is ample food and drink within. I have yet to fully comprehend the defense systems of some ancient ruins outside. Should you inadvertently venture in and meet your demise, I would be left without anyone to converse with." Such benevolent words may have been too overt, or perhaps the underlying sense of detachment unsettled Lillian. Just as Li Wenyuan prepared to depart, Lillian sprang to her feet, blocking his path. Guardian, I will strive to improve. So please, do not send me away, all right?" Her earnest plea caught Li Wenyuan off guard, leaving him both amused and bewildered. Just moments ago, she had appeared terrified. Now, her fears seemed to have vanished. When had he ever suggested that she should leave? When did I say I would abandon you? Rest assured, as long as you remain on this planet, I will never let you go. Do not forget the earmuffs on your head, for without them, I would be unable to reach you. Alas, the inability of primitive beings to articulate poses a considerable challenge. It would be prudent to arrange for a synthetic individual to provide her with lessons. Although Lillian could not grasp the essence of attending class, she sensed it to be a fortuitous endeavor and thus smiled. Unbeknownst to her, this would soon morph into a protracted nightmare. At the very edge of the solar system, a spacecraft materialized abruptly. A mere handful of individuals occupied the vessel. But as they beheld the spectacle within this star system, their eyes widened in unison. This was a planet that, in the eyes of the Leyborn named Copper, ignited a fervent blaze within him. Instinctively, he felt he had arrived at the right destination. Chapter 13. Unexpected peril in terms of both its location and size. This celestial body appeared exceptionally conducive to the emergence of life. Moreover, its surface was adorned with numerous visible structures, leading me to conclude that we had indeed found the right place. Within the research vessel, Copper exuberantly articulated his perspective. His enthusiasm was echoed, to varying degrees, by the other crew members. After traversing over 1,500 planets, they had finally discovered one that might harbor ancient relics. Regardless of whether this planet was a forgotten world, their expedition had not been in vain. Delighted by this fortuitous revelation at the last moment, the time had come to cast votes. Should they land on this planet or merely conduct cursory scans? Those wishing to land and conduct thorough investigations, please raise your hands. As the Professor's words reverberated, every member of the team raised their hands in agreement, including the young man who had previously sparred verbally with Copper. Though he held disdain for Copper, the prospect of embellishing his arsum with a monumental discovery promised to greatly facilitate his future endeavors. Excellent. Since the consensus is to land, let us proceed swiftly. Don your protective suits and gather your equipment. We are about to enter the planet's gravitational field. Within the modest confines of the research vessel, the entire team sprang into action. Copper himself clenched his fists, The secrets left to him by his father were on the verge of revelation. Just as this group of extraterrestrials zealously prepared for their landing, Li Wenyuan, who was directing the synthetic beings in rummaging through refuse, suddenly received an alert from the automated defense system. Warning. Unknown alien spacecraft detected approaching the planet's shield. Detailed images uploaded to the monitoring matrix. Aliens? This unexpected alert heightened Li Wenyuan's vigilance, prompting him to swiftly retrieve the images uploaded by the defense system. Before him was a slender, elongated alien vessel swiftly approaching in a curved trajectory. Its objective unmistakably the planet itself. It seemed they were oblivious to the presence of the planetary shield. If they continued on their current path, they would inevitably collide with the shield and become a mere collection of space debris. Were they pirates? Were they from Karibo? Or perhaps the Duke of Silverstar? In the virtual realm, Li Wenyuan furrowed his brow, contemplating the identity of the newcomer. He first dismissed the possibility of it being Karibo. For if Karibo were indeed seeking living metal, a fleet would have arrived rather than a solitary vessel. He then ruled out pirates, as cunning pirates would never allow their mothership to approach a planet. The mothership was their lifeline, far too precious to risk on trivial landings. Could it be the men of the Duke of Silverstar? His gaze flickered as he pondered the likelihood of this scenario. He was skeptical that someone of such high standing as the Duke of Silverstar would mobilize forces for a mere band of pirates. Typically, one would only investigate the location of the pirate's disappearance, and if it were too distant, simply disregard it altogether. However, he could not afford to destroy their ship just yet. Distress signals could complicate matters. Thus, he decided to infiltrate their ship systems first. Previously, he had discovered a peculiar technology on the tech tree, which was now perfectly suited for this purpose. As his gaze shifted, a facility resembling a radar station began to rotate slowly on the ground. Phantom signal, technology level 2. Description: in the interstellar age, we can enable signals to carry viruses, subtly infecting the majority of electronic devices. Potential technologies: strong phantom signal 111, phantom signal firewall 92, simplified phantom signal 67. This was a new technology Li Wenyuan had unlocked on the tech tree, capable of infecting devices through an exceedingly covert signal. Initially, he had found it rather unfamiliar, but now it was the perfect opportunity to test the capabilities of this alien technology. Within mere seconds, Li Wenyuan received feedback regarding the phantom signal. Infection completed. The ship's system, Qingshi, has been fully commandeered. Upon seeing that he had completely taken control of the ship's systems, he could not help but exclaim. Indeed, the results are surprisingly effective. He had previously noted that the technologies on the tech tree appeared to surpass those of ordinary interstellar civilizations. Most of the technologies salvaged from the wreckage of downed ships and pirate vessels had been discarded by the research sector, with only a scant few remaining as primitive technologies on the tech tree. It was evident that the technologies employed by those ships did not even qualify as basic level 0 technologies, hence his astonishment. Despite his musings, Li Wenyuan first marked this vessel for passage, lest the planet's shields obliterate it. He then swiftly utilized the infected ship's systems to gain a glimpse of the interior. Have you donned your protective suits? Although atmospheric spectra suggest we could breathe normally on this planet, I trust one need not elaborate on the perils of alien pathogens? In the conference room, the professor and his 4 students stood together, delivering their final admonition. Provided the ship could land safely, their primary concern must be the native pathogens of the planet. Professor, each one of us here has undergone genetic enhancement, and our immune systems are remarkably robust. Is it truly necessary to go to such lengths? A portly member of the group posed this question. He was the slowest and most cumbersome in donning his protective suit, and each descent onto the vessel was a trial for him. A pertinent inquiry, indeed. Surely your history textbooks have enlightened you on the demise of the Zabi civilization? They perished due to a lethal bacterium brought from the cosmos. The professor's words rendered the stout man speechless, silencing him entirely. Noticing that everyone was prepared, the professor commenced a final inventory of supplies. Nutritional capsules, medical guns, remote-controlled drones. Where is the compass? Who was responsible for bringing the compass? The aforementioned portly man hesitantly raised his hand, murmuring, "It's me." And the compass? I believe that with so many technological marvels, a map device can suffice for all functions. There is no need for such an antiquated tool. The usually mild-mannered professor's eyes widened in fury, and he erupted. Hurry and fetch it. Otherwise, your extraterrestrial expedition will earn you a score of 0. Upon hearing that years of hard work might go to waste, the stout man leaped up, flustered, and dashed toward the door, intent on retrieving the compass. Meanwhile, the professor seethed internally, cursing. Have you never ventured into outer space, or even seen a film? Do you not understand the complexities of the cosmic environment, where equipment that functions one moment may fail the next? A compass is hardly reliable. It is virtually useless on planets with unstable magnetic fields. Yet, all possibilities must be accounted for. Every preparation is essential. This troublesome individual must be thoroughly educated during this expedition, otherwise, he may find himself at a disadvantage in future solitary adventures. Lost in thought, the professor suddenly noticed the stout man lingering at the door, showing no signs of departure. And his anger flared anew. What is the matter? The spaceship is about to land. Are you intending for the rest of us to wait on you? To his surprise, the portly man, drenched in sweat, turned around, a look of trepidation crossing his face. The door. It won't open. What? The collective thought of everyone in the conference room upon hearing his words was immediate. The young man who had previously mocked Cooper reacted first, swiftly pushing past the stout man to shout at the camera above the door, "Qingshi, open the door at once." Qingshi is the artificial intelligence aboard the spaceship, controlling most of its functions, even the automatic door operations. Yet, in this moment, silence was the only response. Something was amiss. The control panel indicated that Qingshi was malfunctioning. A voice emerged from behind the group, and turning to look, they saw Cooper at the console, frantically attempting to awaken a large blue stone on the central screen that bore a human likeness. What is happening? Qingshi, an artificial intelligence developed by the United University, is widely utilized across various sectors of naval operations, renowned for its unparalleled stability and safety. How could this be? The professor murmured, his gaze fixed in disbelief upon the silent Qingshi displayed on the screen, a foreboding sensation stirring within him. Without hesitation, Cooper decisively kicked a lever adjacent to the control console. This was the switch for emergency mode, designed to transition the spacecraft to manual operation. The purpose of emergency mode was to avert precisely the situation they now faced. Yet, the spacecraft systems remained unresponsive to his commands, resolutely plummeting towards the Earth regardless of his efforts. We must evacuate through the escape pod immediately. At this rate, everyone will perish without a trace. The professor, true to his expertise, swiftly retrieved a laser cutter from the toolbox and commenced cutting through the door. Fortunately, he had foreseen the need and instructed his students to bring the tools. Otherwise, their escape would have been impossible. The others quickly gathered essential items, and once the professor had severed the door, they proceeded in an orderly fashion towards the midsection of the spacecraft. The escape pod was located here, remarkably free of dust despite its prolonged disuse, thanks to the professor's regular maintenance of this vital system, even though it had never been employed. Everyone, fasten your seatbelts. Brace for impact. With the professor's command, all including him lowered their centers of gravity, securing their seatbelts tightly around them. The professor inhaled deeply and forcefully activated a lever within the escape pod. The escape pod, a component entirely independent of the spacecraft systems, could be manually opened to allow for its release from the ship. In the next moment, the rush of air from their rapid descent howled around them, as the circular view revealed a landscape teeming with vegetation and ruins rushing by. After detaching from the spacecraft, the escape pod began its swift descent towards the ground. Most of the occupants closed their eyes, praying for survival amidst the impending collision, except for the professor and Cooper. One fixated intently on the pod's rudimentary control system, intermittently engaging the cushioning thrusters and gliding wings to mitigate the pod's inertia while striving to adjust its trajectory. The other diligently committed the aerial panorama to memory, keenly assessing their location. The altitude of 10,000 meters vanished in an instant. Soon, the escape pod struck the ground in a plowing manner, skidding several hundred meters before finally coming to a halt. Meanwhile, the spacecraft wobbled overhead, passing over a mountain range, its fate unknown. After a considerable pause, the door of the escape pod creaked open, and several figures began to emerge. Despite having reached their long-anticipated destination, the group found little cause for celebration, as unforeseen calamities had unfolded during their journey. The surrounding silence, seemingly capable of engulfing everything, suggested that this place was not as safe as they had imagined. In the stillness, Cooper felt a sudden jolt in his heart. A sensation of being watched compelled him to turn abruptly, only to find nothing but tranquility. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan, immersed in the virtual world, bore a contented expression. Chapter 14. Under surveillance splendidly, there were no casualties, and the spacecraft had come into my possession. Whether or not I could depart from this planet was no longer within your control. Li Wenyuan reveled in the virtual realm, under his command. This group of extraterrestrial visitors had successfully abandoned their ship, compelled to make an unplanned landing on the surface. It was not that he coveted the technology of the spacecraft. After scanning, the research division concluded that the ship held no necessity for retention, but it could inspire a new class of vessel design. Thus, the technological tree expanded to include a newly developed technology, research vessel. His intent was to avert any potential distress signals that may attract the attention of the extraterrestrials' home nation, sending agents to search for traces of them following the spacecraft's demise. Once he had full control over the ship, he would navigate it through various star systems, creating an illusion of normalcy until the fuel was depleted. As for why he chose to spare the lives of these aliens, it was not out of any murderous inclination. As long as they posed no threat to him and did not disclose the coordinates of this place, allowing them to live was not out of the question, albeit not without a cost. Li Wenyuan's eyes sparkled as he directed the androids to trail the extraterrestrial group, hoping to uncover something through their pursuit. The data aboard the spacecraft indicated that this group was an archaeological team, led by a professor with several students, endeavoring to excavate ancient relics on planets bearing signs of civilization. Indeed, I lacked specialists of this nature, unable to systematically and efficiently explore the vast remnants on the planet. Should these individuals possess such capabilities, hiring them to work for me would not be unfeasible. This planet housed numerous damaged facilities and lost relics. The damaged structures were manageable, as they were marked in the system. However, the lost relics posed a complete enigma for Li Wenyuan. He was not versed in archaeology, and the database provided no guidance on how to excavate those remnants appropriately. He had previously attempted to employ several androids for brute excavation, only to be swiftly annihilated by defensive mechanisms he could hardly comprehend, forcing him to cease his efforts. However, with this new group of people, even though their numbers were few, the assistance of the androids could compensate for the shortage of archaeologists. Li Wenyuan, after all, had an abundance of androids. Yet, he needed to ascertain whether they were merely charlatans seeking fame. If memory served correctly, there was indeed a relic nearby. Should they prove capable of making discoveries, it would be worthwhile to meet them. After reaching this conclusion, Li Wenyuan shifted his focus back to his own affairs. Through the industrious operation of the industrial zone, the reinforced alloy required for the restoration of the dimensional manufacturing machine has been successfully produced. It is unknown how many days he rummaged through refuse to gather the necessary raw materials. Meanwhile, Lillian has not neglected her contributions ever since that day. She has devoted a portion of her time each day to fervently pray. Li Wenyuan has secretly observed Lillian's prayers and noted that she simply kneels on the ground with her hands clasped, silently uttering inexplicable words such as God, salvation, and, subsequently, Zealot is diffused into the surrounding air through her breath. The synthetic being scanning revealed that Zealot manifested directly within Lillian's being rather than being produced from any organ. This phenomenon, which defies the understanding of physics, initially left Li Wenyuan astounded, yet he soon became indifferent to it. Having traversed dimensions himself, what could be more wondrous than this? Furthermore, every time Lillian prays, she praises the Guardian, providing Li Wenyuan with a rare solace amidst his labors. Though his body has become a construct, his consciousness remains largely unchanged from his human past. Previously overwhelmed by myriad tasks and bereft of time for reflection, he now occasionally finds himself grappling with loneliness. With Lillian, this auspicious presence, by his side, he feels quite content. Now, it is time to direct the synthetics to transport materials until the dimensional manufacturing machine is restored, at which point resources will be abundant, and the robotic constructors on the technological tree can commence production. Everyone, rally forth. The planet requires your efforts. Only through the planet's prosperity can you enjoy a better working environment and create greater value. Li Wenyuan spoke to the empty virtual space, offering motivational words akin to soul-nourishing wisdom before he resumed directing a multitude of synthetics to transport the reinforced alloy to the site of the ailing dimensional manufacturing machine. Meanwhile, within a man-made forest, a professor led his 4 students through arduous terrain. Due to their hasty entry into the escape pod and the subsequent loss of control over the spacecraft, they could not bring many essential devices with them. Now, their objective had shifted from exploring ancient relics to seeking a means of departure. After all, none could have anticipated such unforeseen circumstances. As they pressed on, Copper suddenly inquired, "Professor, what do you think happened to our spacecraft? Was it hacked?" His question echoed the concerns of the group. No one could believe that a perfectly functioning artificial intelligence could inexplicably cease to respond moments later. As Copper suggested, everyone assumed they had fallen victim to a cyber intrusion. Your reasoning has merit, but what of the rationale? The source? We require a comprehensive chain to formulate a plausible outcome. What is your line of thought? The professor replied, parting the underbrush before him. After a moment of contemplation, Copper articulated his thoughts. Prior to our approach to the planet, we conducted a preliminary scan. While I cannot assert 100% accuracy, we at least confirmed the absence of any significant biological activity. The system is riddled with a plethora of space debris and abandoned space stations, and the surface harbors visible remnants of structures, indicating that it once hosted an interstellar civilization. Though the reasons for its decline remain a mystery, based on past experiences, the remnants of such civilizations typically possess some form of defensive mechanisms, capable of posing a threat even after millions of years. I suspect our vessel has fallen victim to indiscriminate electronic intrusion. The professor, in motion, nodded in agreement. Indeed, there may be an uncontrolled electronic network on this planet, and as our ship approached its sphere of influence, we came under attack. However, a more pressing issue has emerged. Despite my research vessel having a defense level that ranks amongst the finest even among adventurers, we received no alarms and yet lost control of the ship. Such a scenario typically suggests one possibility. The adversary's technological level vastly surpasses ours, effortlessly breaching our defenses. Do you comprehend my implication? The professor's words cast a pall of silence over the group. After a considerable pause, the corpulent member of the team managed to utter, "You mean to say that the danger we face could be exceedingly dire?" The professor, with an impassive expression, nodded. That is one possibility. The more advanced the technology, the more it encompasses phenomena beyond our understanding. Even a single uncontrolled robotic pet here could shred us all to pieces. However, this also implies that we might encounter extraordinarily bountiful rewards, perhaps lost technologies, rare resources, or even formidable derelict warships. Copper seized upon the professor's remarks, earning appreciative glances. The young man, who had always been at odds with Copper, exclaimed in astonishment. Are you out of your mind? Do you intend to engage with those terrifying remnants? Shouldn't we first seek a means of escape? I believe the way out lies within those remnants. Kappa's eyes burned with determination, as if nothing could deter his resolve. With such a multitude of relics on this planet, it is impossible that we would not find what we need. Once we ascertain the correct method of entry, we shall inevitably find our way out. You are insane. It seems you are driven by your father's elusive ideals. I absolutely refuse to venture into those ruins. Just as the two were on the verge of another argument, the professor intervened promptly. Enough, everyone quiet down. Whether we choose to circumvent the ruins or to explore them, we lack the time for either today. We must hasten to locate a suitable camping site. Once again, the team fell into silence. At that moment, the rotund member at the back suddenly felt a chill, as if something sinister had fixed its gaze upon him. When he turned around, he was left frozen in terror. In the forest gaps, a colossal black shadow slowly raised its form, its vivid crimson eyes fixated hungrily on the rotund figure before it, as if it had spotted a delectable morsel of flesh. Chapter 15. The terrifying planet at the forefront. The professor habitually cleared the underbrush, when suddenly, he stumbled upon a plump fruit lying on the ground. Instinctively, he intended to summon the corpulent member of their party, well-versed in extraterrestrial flora, for identification. However, upon turning around, he was struck by an alarming realization. One of their number was missing. Where's the fat man? He inquired, prompting the others to pause. Suddenly aware of the void left by his absence, a foreboding sense gripped the professor, and he hastily directed the group to retrace their steps in search of their lost companion. Not far along, they discovered the rotund figure, seated on the ground, trembling in fright as if paralyzed by some unseen terror. Fat man, what are you doing? Copper shouted, rushing forward, only to halt mid-stride, terror flickering in his eyes. Before them loomed a massive spider, its 8 limbs plunged deep into the earth, supporting its weighty form. Beneath its glaring red eyes, its mandibles twitched menacingly, drool dripping onto the hapless fat man below. The group was perplexed as to how their companion had provoked such a horrifying extraterrestrial creature. But the professor was the first to react, drawing forth his laser cutter. This high-energy tool, normally employed for slicing through metal, could also inflict harm upon living beings within a certain range, making it one of his few weapons. Aiming at the spider, he bellowed, "What are you waiting for? Hurry and bring the fat man over here." The others snapped to attention, frantically attempting to drag the immobilized figure back to safety. At that moment, the professor fired his weapon, the green cutting beam striking the spider. Yet, the potent laser, capable of severing ordinary alloys, seemed to vanish into the void upon contact with the creature, eliciting no sign of anger or retaliation. The spider merely watched, contemplating a pursuit as the fat man was dragged away. The professor's expression shifted through a spectrum of emotions. This cutter was the most formidable weapon at his disposal, yet it proved futile against this alien beast. With no other options, he joined his students in retreat, retrieving a flare gun. In his years of extraterrestrial exploration, he had learned that instilling fear in such gigantic beings was paramount. Light and fire served as the most effective deterrents against primitive creatures. The flare, in addition to emitting a brilliant light, also acted as an excellent incendiary source. When ignited on the ground, it would create numerous fire points that would rapidly spread. The forest around them provided ample fuel, and thus the professor aimed for a dense thicket, launching the flare. A blinding light erupted, momentarily halting the giant spider in its tracks, followed by scattered combustibles igniting the surrounding woods. The flames surged suddenly, rapidly coalescing into a wall of fire, with towering tongues of flame licking the heavens, obstructing the path of the colossal spider. The professor felt a surge of relief, a fleeting sensation of salvation. Yet, in the next moment, rather than retreating, the enormous arachnid seemed incensed, ruthlessly sweeping aside the burning trees and charging towards them. The thunderous sound of its movements reverberated through the forest, and even the professor was gripped by terror, fleeing desperately. However, how could 2 legs outrun 8? The distance between them swiftly diminished. The young man, positioned second to last, cast a cold glance at the plump figure hastily trailing behind. It appeared that this alien creature had been provoked by the chubby fellow. Perhaps by surrendering him, they could escape calamity. Beneath his impassive facade lay a malevolence unnoticed by anyone. Seizing the opportunity as no one paid him heed, the young man subtly slowed his pace, maintaining his position alongside the plump man, and then discreetly tripped him. Caught unawares amidst his frantic flight, the plump man lost his balance and fell to the ground, rolling several times before coming to a stop. Dazed and disoriented, he caught sight of the triumphant smile of the young man, whose cunning scheme had succeeded. Unbeknownst to the others, someone had already fallen behind, and the plump man froze in horror as a massive appendage violently plunged into the earth beside him. Trembling, he lifted his gaze, only to be met by the suddenly enlarged mandibles of the beast. "Ah!" The plump man's scream pierced the ears of all present. When Cooper turned back, he beheld the horrifying sight of the plump man being devoured halfway by the giant spider. A heavy weight settled in his heart as his gaze discreetly flicked to the young man, who continued to flee without a word. Yet, in the midst of their escape, no one dared to speak. After a prolonged flight, The group finally paused to catch their breath, having fully exited the confines of the forest. However, a shadow loomed over them, as the memory of the plump man's gruesome demise lingered painfully. Clearly, they had been too complacent. Under the influence of advanced technology, explorers often overlook crucial dangers, embodying arrogance and hubris that ultimately lead them to perish at the hands of indigenous inhabitants. With a bitter expression, the professor recited a line from the interstellar literary classic Cosmic Drift, which encapsulated the fate of many explorers who met their end in foreign lands. Upon hearing this iconic line, a profound silence enveloped the group. Although they outwardly acknowledged the gravity of their situation, deep within, they clung to the arrogance of being a spacefaring civilization. Even if this place had once known civilization, they regarded it as antiquated. Their technology, they believed, had long surpassed that of the past. Otherwise, they would not have recklessly approached this planet, only to inexplicably lose control of their spacecraft, making missteps at every turn, culminating in the loss of a companion. The planet continued its rotation, and soon the sky darkened ominously. As the multitude succumbed to silence and slumber, each individual's thoughts diverged. Within an artificial forest adjacent to the core of the guardianship, an android under Li Wenyuan's control sat upon a tree stump, sighing. Beside it, Lillian sat upright, her demeanor obedient, though her gaze frequently wandered towards the gaming console resting nearby. To teach a primitive individual the art of speech, Li Wenyuan exerted tremendous effort, eloquently presenting his lesson plans with great fervor. Ultimately, he concluded that he was ill-suited for the role of a teacher. It was not that his instruction was lacking, rather, the student's perplexity had led him to question his own capabilities. Guardian, may I play now? Go ahead, he sighed, observing Lillian's exuberance. Li Wenyuan supported his forehead and summoned a scene from the other side of the earth. There, a rotund alien was ensnared by web-like strands, precariously hanging upside down from a branch, unconscious. In the nearby frame, a colossal spider was actively moving about, intermittently spraying liquid to extinguish flames or using its powerful limbs to sever the source of fire. Has the gardening robot reactivated? Li Wenyuan mused in surprise upon seeing the giant spider-like creature. This being was actually an antiquated robot, its model far older than the androids, akin to a museum artifact. True to its name, it was a gardening robot, primarily tasked with pruning trees towering 50 to 60 meters high. Its hardware had aged to the point where it could no longer establish a connection with the guardianship matrix. When Li Wenyuan first encountered it, it was in a prolonged state of hibernation, deeply embedded beneath the soil. Unable to find a means to awaken it, he had chosen to disregard the gardening robot altogether. Unexpectedly, that group of aliens had activated it somehow, even capturing one individual in the process, piquing Li Wenyuan's interest. Thus, he accessed the surveillance footage of the area. He observed the aliens cautiously traversing the synthetic forest, diligently clearing the underbrush that obstructed their path. As he watched, enlightenment dawned upon him regarding how they had reactivated the gardening robot. The leading professor deemed the journey through the forest cumbersome and opted to utilize a laser cutter, swiftly obliterating a vast expanse of undergrowth along with numerous towering trees. While their haste was undoubtedly facilitated, the gardening robot, upon detecting the destruction of its territory, could hardly be pleased. It awakened from its dormant state, prepared to apprehend these trespassers, only to shift its focus to extinguishing the fire ignited by the professor's actions. The portly individual was merely an unfortunate soul ensnared in the chaos, left dangling from a branch, awaiting the return of the robot's former master to address these miscreants. With the first day unfolding so chaotically, Li Wenyuan found himself somewhat disheartened, pondering the inadequacies of these aliens within the virtual realm, hastened to drive them towards the relics, lest they linger throughout the day. With this thought, he maneuvered a synthetic being, gradually approaching Kappa's encampment. Chapter 16. The Relic in a modest open-air camp. Kappa assumed the role of the night watchman. His companions, all of whom had undergone genetic enhancement, required merely 2 hours of slumber each day to fulfill their physiological needs. Kappa, however, quietly illuminated an ancient manuscript with the beam of his flashlight, perusing its pages. This manuscript was a secret bequeathed to him by his father before his passing, chronicling an expedition to an ancient relic. Kappa was unaware of when his father had joined such a private exploration team, but according to the records, he was the only member to return alive with this manuscript in hand. Following that expedition, his father became increasingly reclusive, seldom engaging with the outside world, and even Kappa rarely saw him. Nevertheless, an extraordinary fire ultimately claimed his life, incinerating all possessions, save for this manuscript, which he had been implored to carry at all times. Kappa sensed that within its pages lay a vast and terrifying secret awaiting his discovery. As he returned the manuscript to his chest, his keen senses suddenly detected an approaching presence near the camp. Instantly alert, his gaze fixed upon a patch of grass in the distance. Thanks to the enhanced vision bestowed by genetic modification, he discerned something treading upon the grass, gradually advancing towards their location. There is something amiss. Kappa immediately sounded the alarm, rousing his slumbering companions. The professor rolled over to Kappa's side, crouching low, and quickly noticed the anomalous impressions on the grass, his pupils dilating in alarm. Quick, gather your belongings. Prepare to flee. Having faced the threat of colossal spiders, they no longer dismissed any anomalies on this planet. Even though nothing was visible at present, they resolved to depart without delay. As they fled, the young man who frequently exchanged banter with Copper could not contain his curiosity. What is that? With the naked eye, they could perceive nothing of its existence. Only the trampled grass hinted at its presence, suggesting it had achieved complete optical invisibility. Furthermore, the pre-installed alarms had proven ineffective, indicating that their current detection methods were inadequate against it. Clearly, this was a mysterious entity that transcended their technological capabilities. Was it an indigenous inhabitant of this land, an extraterrestrial visitor, or an ancient unknown creation? Copper swiftly articulated his thoughts, envisioning a completely invisible extraterrestrial being. Meanwhile, the professor, drawing upon decades of experience, contemplated the possible explanations, yet none seemed to align with the current predicament. Unable to resist, he glanced back, and that single look sent his heart racing. As the mountains and fields were engulfed by a mysterious, thick black mist, it surged towards them, concealing within it a terrifying and unknown entity that writhed ominously. The seasoned professor, known for his extensive knowledge, exhibited an unusual expression of fear. Life inherently harbors a dread of the unknown. Had it merely been a grotesque creature before him, he would not have felt such profound trepidation. After all, no matter how hideous, it would still be a living organism, tangible and understandable. Yet, this all-consuming black mist transcended his comprehension, and for the first time, the lifelong materialist found himself engulfed in chaos. Quick, we must find a place to hide, he shouted, his composure abandoned, his aged visage etched with terror and ferocity, a sight most unimaginable for a professor of his stature. The others, startled by his uncharacteristic reaction, turned to gaze back, and all shared a look of horror, wishing to expend every ounce of strength on their escape. However, finding a secure refuge in this desolate place was no trivial task. Ultimately, they all directed their gaze toward an ancient ruin not far off. Countless remnants lay buried beneath the earth, encircling a colossal structure at its center. It resembled an inverted pyramid, its apex plunged into the ground, while its base featured a large entrance. The thick tower loomed toward the heavens, serving both as a potential docking platform for spacecraft and as a beacon, awaiting the arrival of the chosen. We must go there. Regardless of the dangers that may lurk within the ruins, we must first endure the present. This realization resonated among them, and they hurriedly dashed into the ruins just before the black mist could seize them. To their astonishment, the once advancing black mist seemed to hesitate at this threshold, its pace slackening significantly. Yet, it appeared reluctant to simply let them escape, as if eager to breach the sanctuary of the ruins. Observing this, the group felt a tremor of fear, hastening their steps until they swiftly vanished within the entrance. After a prolonged moment of indecision, the black mist finally dissipated into the horizon, confirming that no one had emerged. In this unfolding drama, a figure began to materialize from the grass, gradually shedding its invisible state. This figure was a synthetic being equipped with full vision cloaking technology, stealthily approaching its target. Its controller, Li Wenyuan, expressed his thoughts. Indeed, this technology proves remarkably effective. I had no idea such an extensive holographic projection could be created. The living standards of people in that era are truly beyond imagination. Of course, his remark pertained not to the full vision cloaking, but to another technological advancement within a different realm. Mobile holographic theater, technology level 3. Description: mass-market holographic technology elevates entertainment to unprecedented heights. At this juncture, everyone is capable of creating their own fantastical empire. The recent overwhelming shroud of darkness was, in fact, merely an illusion generated by projections. Such lifelike projections are difficult to discern without personal experience, which explains why the group of extraterrestrials was so easily frightened away. The relic they entered is right here. Gazing upon the immense inverted pyramid, Li Wenyuan's eyes sparkled with interest. He had explored most of the relics on the planet with synthetic beings, many of which were fraught with peril. The inverted pyramid before him was relatively safe. At least Li Wenyuan had not encountered any danger within, although he had similarly failed to uncover anything of significance. Nevertheless, he refused to believe that there was truly nothing inside. It must be that he had yet to find the appropriate method of exploration. If a relic contained nothing, could it still be considered a relic? Perhaps these extraterrestrials might bring him a pleasant surprise. The synthetic being's gaze flickered, once again shifting into an invisible state before entering the relic. Chapter 17. Deep within the relic, upon re-entering this inverted pyramid-like relic, Li Wenyuan felt as if he had transcended time. In stark contrast to its futuristic exterior, the interior of the inverted pyramid bore a resemblance to limestone structures. An air of wind erosion lingered on the inner walls, and at the seams of each layer of sand and stone, one could observe the joints. At first glance, it appeared quite ancient, an incongruity with the science fiction architecture surrounding it. However, upon closer inspection, it became evident that these materials were indeed just limestone. With a casual swipe, the synthetic being could brush away some debris. The analysis report confirmed that these stones were pure limestone, devoid of any anomalies. Yet, therein lay the most peculiar aspect. Why would such an evidently advanced sci-fi structure possess a rocky interior? Li Wenyuan found himself perplexed, hoping that the extraterrestrials could unveil the secrets hidden within. He strolled leisurely at the rear, entirely unconcerned that the invisible synthetic being might be detected. True to the exterior of the inverted pyramid, the interior space widened as one ascended, with the buried secrets residing at the pinnacle. After traversing a spiral staircase, the upward space gradually expanded. Soon, he reached the uppermost level. This was the deepest part of the relic, the very place where Li Wenyuan had been unable to discern the underlying issues. The remaining 4 members of the extraterrestrial team were gathered here, seemingly engaged in a discussion regarding their observations. Li Wenyuan refrained from approaching recklessly, instead relying on the synthetic being's acute hearing to eavesdrop on their conversation. "Cooper, have you discovered anything?" one inquired. In hindsight, the posture of this relic bears a certain resemblance to the records in my father's manuscript, which I failed to examine closely during our earlier escape. Cooper produced the ancient manuscript, pointing to a page as he addressed the group. Should Li Wenyuan catch sight of this, he would undoubtedly be astonished, for upon that page lies an unmistakable pyramid. Adjacent to the pyramid rests a remarkably familiar statue, the Sphinx. It is worth noting that these wonders are nowhere to be found on Earth today. How could they possibly appear in the manuscript of an extraterrestrial being? A glimmer of insight flashed in the professor's eyes, only to be quickly overshadowed by his reservations. Indeed, if we merely consider their shapes, the 2 monuments bear an uncanny resemblance to one another, akin to reflections. However, we both understand that the square pyramid is a remarkably prevalent form throughout the cosmos. Even primitive civilizations might construct edifices of similar design. We cannot conflate these 2 relics. His assertion holds merit. The square pyramid is indeed a ubiquitous shape, and it is plausible that numerous alien civilizations would also erect structures of such form. Copper fell into a contemplative silence, eventually expressing his frustration. We have explored this monument for so long, yet we have uncovered nothing, nor have we encountered any peril. There is a complete absence of any tangible information here. This relic feels like an empty shell, devoid of the substance that should reside within. His sentiments echoed those of Li Wenyuan, as this monument was the most desolate he had ever encountered, appearing utterly void of anything, including danger. Such a phenomenon is exceedingly rare on this planet. Li Wenyuan had faced terrifying defensive systems in other ruins, yet this one was remarkably unremarkable. However, waiting idly serves no purpose, for who knows if that shroud of darkness has lifted. Assuming this monument belongs to the same category as the one your father explored, what can you deduce? The young man, who had been responsible for the demise of the stout individual, pressed Copper for an answer. Copper cast him a sidelong glance, but ultimately decided to entertain his line of inquiry. My father's manuscript contains numerous cryptic phrases and ciphers that I have yet to fully decipher, allowing me to derive only limited insights. He theorized that this square pyramid structure was constructed by that lost civilization for the purpose of interring the dead. Interring the dead? The young man could not help but interject. Are you jesting? Such a colossal edifice solely for burial? Indeed, based on the information within the manuscript, this appears to be the case, though it is possible that my interpretation lacks completeness, Copper added with resignation, for he, too, found it hard to believe that such a structure could exist solely as a tomb. Though the speaker may not have intended it, the listener was keenly aware. Concealed, Li Wenyuan wore a look of astonishment. While these aliens might be oblivious, he, as a terrestrial being, knew that pyramids were indeed constructed as tombs. Copper, please continue your conjecture. Perhaps we may unravel the secrets hidden here. The professor, listening intently, furrowed his brow, deeply engrossed in thought, striving to glean further information for a more informed judgment. Upon witnessing the situation, Copper continued, according to my father's conjecture, the deepest part of that ruin likely harbors the remains of a certain organism. This being must have made a monumental contribution to the civilization, thus meriting such an honor. However, his expedition team was unable to penetrate the depths of the ruin, encountering there what the manuscripts failed to document. Yet it is evident that it was an extremely perilous entity. This locale appears to be the antithesis of that tomb. We have not faced any dangers here, yet we have also gleaned no information. If we were to speculate from this contrary perspective, if that ruin is meant for the interment of the deceased, might this ruin serve the purpose of resurrecting the dead? His audacious conjecture left the assembly momentarily stunned, before a young man burst into laughter, exclaiming, "Resurrecting the deceased? You would do better to discuss such matters with those foolish idealists." The echoes of his laughter reverberated through the space, but the others remained unmoved, their brows furrowed in contemplation. Observing this, the young man ceased his laughter, incredulously regarding them. You cannot truly believe this, can you? Is this not an utterly impractical notion? The idea of resurrecting the dead is not as far-fetched as it may seem. If you have perused Professor Callus's latest paper, you would be aware that a level 3 civilization has nearly accomplished the feat of reviving the deceased. In truth, numerous idealist civilizations have conducted research in this domain, with relevant papers presented at the last scientific symposium. Moreover, certain materialist civilizations and cosmic enterprises have quietly been investigating related technologies. This is not a subject worthy of mockery. as its implications for ethics are indeed a matter we must contemplate. Copper's elucidation caused the young man's complexion to fluctuate between shades of green and white, ultimately rendering him silent, his expression grim. Hidden away, Li Wenyuan was also inspired by the extraterrestrials' discourse, though not concerning the resurrection of the dead, but rather the inverse. The pyramid serves not solely to entomb the deceased, but also to facilitate the ascent of souls to the heavens. Might this inverted pyramid, then, be intended as a guide for something arriving here? His gaze flickered, lost in thought. Chapter 18. A Colossal Arrival. Is it to exist as a beacon? This thought emerged in Li Wenyuan's mind. The ruin before him was exceedingly unique, devoid of any contents, resembling merely a grand landmark. If perceived in this light, it indeed seems well suited to function as a beacon. With such an extensive surface area, it could presumably receive a multitude of signals. The more he pondered, the more plausible it appeared, while simultaneously, the group of extraterrestrials resumed their discussions. The notion of resurrecting the dead may sound like a tale from the Arabian Nights. Yet given the technology of that lost civilization, it might not be entirely impossible. If this holds true, then there must exist some unknown activation mechanism within this ruin, perhaps enabling us to revive the portly individual. Nevertheless, we assume that these two relics originate from the same civilization. What if they are, in fact, from entirely different civilizations? In such a case, the previous conclusions would be rendered utterly invalid. This conclusive statement plunged everyone present into a profound silence. After a moment, Copper finally spoke. I have a premonition that these two relics should indeed be the handiwork of the same civilization. A premonition? The young man scoffed. Such a fallacy, long since debunked, can still escape your lips? We require more scientific evidence, rather than vague, idealistic sentiments. However, these words struck a chord with Li Wenyuan, igniting a spark of inspiration within him. Idealism. This brought to mind the myriad of damaged facilities on this planet that required Zello for restoration. Wasn't that precisely the sort of thing an idealistic civilization would employ? Had humanity ultimately embarked upon an idealistic path? Li Wenyuan pondered this, temporarily placing a question mark beside the thought. He had heard that idealists harbored an extreme aversion to artificial intelligence, deeming it a defilement of the sacred consciousness. What, then, of his own guardian matrix, an artificial intelligence? Unable to resolve this conundrum, he noted it down in his notebook. For the present, he resolved to experiment with Zello within this relic, hoping it might trigger something significant. Thus, Zello, stored in the repository, was summoned in its entirety, with 95 of it brought over by the synthetic beings under his command, leaving only a small amount reserved for the repair of the dimensional generator. The synthetics, carrying Zello, sped towards the inverted pyramid at supersonic speeds. And even after circumventing half the globe, they swiftly arrived above the structure. Li Wenyuan first released a small amount of Zello onto the vast flat surface atop the inverted pyramid, but the purple mist quickly dissipated into the sky, leaving no trace and yielding no new discoveries. Next, he released Zello around the periphery of the inverted pyramid, yet the outcome was the same, with no reaction whatsoever. Finally, he brought Zello into the interior of the inverted pyramid, gently opening the container. The ethereal purple gas began to rise, soon making contact with the weathered limestone walls. Then, a miraculous scene unfolded. The Zello gas surged into the limestone as if it were water meeting a sponge, fervently permeating the stone. A whole canister's worth vanished before Li Wenyuan could fully comprehend the event, leaving behind only an empty shell. In the next instant, the weathered rock seemed infused with life, emitting a faint purple glow that rapidly spread through the interconnected fissures, transforming the interior of the inverted pyramid into a luminous entity. Such an astonishing spectacle not only left Li Wenyuan in awe, but also instilled panic among the extraterrestrials. What was happening? Had someone triggered a switch? The purple radiance instantaneously illuminated the depths of the relic, revealing intricate lines that gradually emerged in the light before everyone's eyes. The intricate web formed a vast star map, with billions of luminous points representing star systems scattered throughout. Among them, certain points shone brighter, suggesting that this location held significance. Is this the star map of the galaxy? Copper gazed incredulously at the three-dimensional image, awestruck by its intricate detail. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan's pupils constricted as he swiftly entered the star map into the database. Simultaneously, the top plane of the inverted pyramid began to slowly open. The relic, previously shrouded in mystery, had resumed its operation. Sunlight streamed through the aperture into the interior of the relic, only to witness the stellar points swiftly dissipating as if confirmed, leaving behind a solitary, inconspicuous glimmer that still flickered faintly. For reasons unknown, Li Wenyuan felt that this glimmer represented the solar system. The aliens, too, began to speculate wildly at that moment. It seemed as though the relic had been activated. What might transpire? Perhaps we should seek a safer refuge, for I have not seen those dark mists. Voices among the crowd hinted at a desire to leave the interior of the relic, yet the old professor bellowed, I shall never abandon this place. His eyes glowed crimson, unwavering even in the face of the sun. I have devoted half my life to the study of extraterrestrial relics. This is the first time I have witnessed a relic successfully activated. Regardless of the consequences it may bring, I must bear witness, even at the cost of my life. For the first time, this venerable professor revealed his fervor for the relic. Copper, too, remained rooted to the spot. His instincts urged him not to miss this moment. At that instant, a flurry of notifications flooded the virtual world where Li Wenyuan resided. Automated defense system alert. Intense subspace disturbance detected. Deep space monitoring station alert. Intense subspace disturbance detected. The notifications were numerous. Yet all uniformly reported the detection of strong subspace fluctuations. Surprisingly, none of the subsystems issued alarms. They were merely notifications, as if they were already well acquainted with these subspace disturbances. In the blink of an eye, the sunlit day transformed into night. A pitch-black sky obscured any glimmer of light, as if a colossal beast had devoured all the stars, plunging the earth into an interminable darkness. Why did the sky suddenly turn black? Is the effect of this relic not to resurrect the dead, but rather to alter the cycle of day and night on this planet? Questions arose within the relic, where the only illumination came from the brightly glowing inner walls and the nearly vanished star map featuring that diminutive star system. No, Copper suddenly interjected, his eyes reflecting an indescribable shock. It was not the darkness of night that enveloped the sky, but rather something that arrived here, obscuring the entire expanse above. This is the operation of the hyperspace mobile fleet. Connection with the Guardian Matrix has been re-established. Control is now handed over to the Guardian Matrix. The mobile combat module is now online. The Guardian Matrix has completed its augmentation. 35. Additional monitoring permissions have been granted. Li Wenyuan stared in disbelief at the database, where an absurdly immense ship model appeared, leaving him questioning its capability for mobility. Chapter 19. The Celestial Veil warship, ship blueprints have been recorded. New technologies have been added to the tech tree. Unlike previous instances where data was swiftly entered, this time the database took an unusually long duration to process. It was only after the aliens had engaged in numerous discussions and had begun documenting their observations that Li Wenyuan received updates from the database. Following this, he accessed the tech tree interface and gazed upon the 8th level technology positioned at a lofty height. As expected, there was a solitary illuminated technology that stood out amidst the surrounding grayness. Celestial Veil warship, technology level 8. Description: a profound understanding and utilization of hyperspace has liberated us from concerns regarding the volume and mass of spacecraft. Constructing a super battleship of actual size sufficient to encompass a star system will become an interstellar marvel of the new era, one that any civilization would find awe-inspiring. Potential technologies: hyperspace megastructure engineering, 0. Genesis theory, 0. Veil theory, 0. Hyperspace exists as a buffer zone between the realm of normal matter and that of antimatter. It is not confined to the conventional understanding of space, where the physical theories of reality do not apply. The colossal warship, which obscured the entire sky, utilized technologies related to hyperspace. According to the blueprints in the database, the actual cross-sectional area of this gargantuan warship was greater than that of the solar system itself. Such immense volume and mass rendered it incapable of fully manifesting within the physical universe, as the gravitational force it generated was sufficient to obliterate itself. At that moment, the vast black shroud covering the Earth's atmosphere was merely a minuscule fraction of its total structure, not even 1/10,000th of its overall volume. Yet even so, this Celestial Veil warship instantaneously captivated all the extraterrestrials, just as the description indicated. Any civilization would be entranced by it. Although the blueprint was available, Li Wenyuan felt no elation at possessing such a formidable 8th-level technology. This was due to the fact that the prerequisite technologies required for the Celestial Veil warship had not yet been unlocked, and the construction costs were harrowingly astronomical. He could scarcely fathom how humanity had once managed to construct such a colossal entity. Perhaps it was best to first explore the unexpected functions of this Celestial Veil warship. With keen interest, Li Wenyuan began examining the relevant parameters. Meanwhile, the aliens engaged in fervent discussions regarding this enigmatic creation that had obscured the sky. What do you suppose it might be? Judging by the circumstances that arose after the activation of this relic, it is likely an artifact crafted by a long-lost civilization that once inhabited this place. Could it possibly be a form of extraterrestrial life? I find that implausible. Given the passage of time, we have observed no signs of activity. I am more inclined to believe it is some undiscovered cosmic phenomenon. It is difficult to ascertain. When a living entity reaches a certain macro size, the familiar laws we know may not apply to it. Would you think such an immense being would still require sustenance from flora or fauna? However, a cosmic phenomenon is equally plausible. Perhaps upon the relic's activation, it will generate this obscurity, placing the entire planet in a state of non-interaction with the outside world. In fact, I tend to agree that this represents an undiscovered cosmic phenomenon. The young man, who had remained silent for quite some time, suddenly spoke up, drawing the attention of the crowd. Our instruments have not detected any suspicious signals. In truth, I have been preoccupied with one particular question since its emergence. Why has this location not been affected by any anomalous gravitational forces? At that moment, the young man's eyes seemed to gleam with enthusiasm, a strong confidence propelling him to speak with fervor. Whether due to its considerable size or its proximity to this place, Its mass should exert a significant influence on this planet. Yet, it appears as if gravity does not exist in this instance. What does this imply? It suggests that it possesses no mass, or perhaps an exceedingly small amount. Yet, it undeniably obscures the sky above. Perhaps we should endeavor to understand it as a cosmic phenomenon and base our research upon that premise. The young man's fervor grew as he spoke, seemingly emboldened by his theory, even garnering nods of approval from the professor, who appeared to endorse his assertions. However, a jarring voice abruptly interrupted his discourse. As a theoretical proposition, it is indeed commendable, but one should not be so confident. Our spacecraft serves as a cautionary tale. Perhaps this obscurity is an effective technology beyond our comprehension? The voice was familiar, yet sent shivers down the spines of those present. Fatty, is that you? Were you not consumed by that giant spider? The young man nearly blurted out, but he quickly reframed his words to reflect the common knowledge among them. Most were taken aback by the miraculous return of the fatty, hardly registering the slip. In truth, it was not a giant spider, while it may have appeared similar. Upon closer inspection, one would realize it was a large robot. Fatty showed no sign of concern regarding their astonishment and continued with his account in a remarkably composed manner. Within that large robot was a storage chamber. Shortly after you departed, it suspended me from a tree, seemingly executing a form of punitive action. I then devised a means to escape, following the trail you left behind to arrive here. What? No warm welcome for me. Fatty's explanation was delivered with such nonchalance that it left the audience in disbelief. However, at this moment, he appeared vividly before them, leaving the crowd in a state of bewilderment. Strangely, their thoughts drifted back to previous discussions concerning the capabilities of this ancient ruin, speculating that it might possess the power to resurrect the deceased. Could this rotund figure before them be a reanimated soul? Ultimately, it was Copper who broke the silence. We are, of course, delighted to see you. But due to certain circumstances, I must pose a few questions that you must answer correctly to rejoin our team. Oh, have you encountered a creature capable of mimicking the appearance of others? The figure responded with a hint of nonchalance. Nevertheless, please proceed with your inquiries. The first question, who am I? You are Copper. The second question, from which planet do you hail? I am from Caliber Mythos. With both responses devoid of any discrepancies. The serious expressions on the faces of the crowd began to ease, yet Copper remained furrowed in thought, sensing something amiss about the individual before him. The final question, what is the purpose of our presence here? To explore the ruins chronicled in your manuscript. Well then, is that satisfactory? The plump man's flawless answers temporarily swayed the group's skepticism, even eliciting a sigh of relief from Copper. Welcome back to the team, my friend. I almost thought I would never see you again in this lifetime. Your tale is truly legendary. If we manage to escape this place, I shall write a book about you. Indeed. The others chimed in with similar celebratory remarks, Copper included. I am genuinely relieved to see you safe. However, during your absence, we have encountered a plethora of new uncertainties. As a biologist, could you assist us? Of course not, came the retort in Laborn, a language not commonly spoken among the group. In an instant, Coppa's pupils dilated, and he halted the others, intently scrutinizing the rotund figure. Realizing something was amiss, the man swiftly switched back to Galactic Common, stating, there is no need for such wariness. Is it so unusual for me to learn an additional language in private? This is certainly not merely about acquiring a new language, Copper replied gravely, maintaining a steady gaze on the man. I do not know who you are, but it appears you have been out of touch with interstellar society for quite some time. Laborn is notoriously difficult to master. Outsiders typically resort to synthetic sounds instead of attempting to vocalize it. Is that enough to dismiss me? That seems rather biased, the plump man countered. Curiosity etched on his face as he sought to make a final stand. After a brief silence, Copper continued. The pronunciation of Laborn requires a unique organ possessed solely by its native speakers. Among this crew, I am the only Laborn. Chapter 20, A Threat? Upon hearing Coppa's declaration, the rotund figure was momentarily taken aback. Then he broke into a knowing smile, gradually revealing his true nature. Indeed, it was my oversight to assume that extraterrestrials and humans could be deemed synonymous. The corpulent figure began to contort, and the projections clinging to its surface dissipated in an instant as the holographic theater came to a close. Before them stood a synthetic being, unmistakably alien in appearance, which was under the control of Li Wenyuan. Allow me to introduce myself. I am the custodian of this planet, a title you may also use to refer to me as the Guardian. Guardian. Copper furrowed his brow, watching the unfamiliar entity with trepidation, his mind racing to recall any relevant information, yet ultimately finding himself at a loss. Just as he was about to articulate a response, a young man beside him interjected, his tone laced with hostility. So, was the malfunction of our spacecraft your handiwork? Naturally, breaching your defense systems was hardly a daunting task, Li Wenyuan conceded, revealing no reservations about this fact. Does that mean if we leave you here, we can escape? The young man's gaze grew increasingly menacing, as though he were contemplating a physical confrontation. Li Wenyuan paused, sizing up the youth, and could not refrain from commenting. In your civilization, is arrogance regarded as a virtue? What leads you to believe that someone capable of quietly neutralizing your vessel could be so easily subdued by you? It is only the unknown that breeds fear. Yet now that you have manifested here, you are no longer an enigma. To us, you have transformed into a being that can be vanquished. The young man remained undaunted, exuding a sense of unwavering confidence. Li Wenyuan nodded in understanding. Ah, I see. I had contemplated whether to maintain an air of mystery in our engagement. Yet I recognize the necessity of establishing a cooperative relationship with you. Thus, I believe transparency is paramount. However, I did not anticipate your immediate inclination to resort to violence. At this point, Li Wenyuan regarded the young man with curiosity. I have observed that you possess an inexplicable self-assurance, as though you are entirely immune to peril. Could it be that you harbor some deeply concealed secret? Such words caused the young man's pupils to contract slightly, yet outwardly, he maintained an impassive demeanor. Ultimately, it was the professor who stepped forward, locking his gaze onto the extraterrestrial entity and stating, "Esteemed guardian, my student has spoken inappropriately. I apologize on his behalf and hope for your understanding." His words were laden with humility, as he positioned himself in a place of subservience. The worldly professor, more seasoned and astute, discerned that the guardian bore no immediate malice toward them. An entity wielding such advanced technology could easily eliminate them from the shadows. Moreover, judging by the guardian's words, it was evident that he sought their assistance to some extent. Otherwise, there would be no need for him to personally manifest to convey his sincerity. Based on this, the professor wished to discern the true desires of the guardian. This sentiment was echoed in Copper's thoughts, as he yearned to uncover the secrets of this place, provided his safety was assured. For these mysteries were likely intertwined with the death of his father. So, esteemed guardian, might you elaborate on what you mean by cooperation? Of course. That was precisely my intention for being here, Li Wenyuan replied, nodding. As you can observe, this planet is replete with countless relics, each concealing innumerable secrets. I, however, am merely a custodian of this world and possess no expertise in excavating these relics. Thus, I require specialists to assist me in unveiling the secrets hidden within. I shall provide all necessary resources, including sustenance, equipment, manpower, and a comfortable living environment. The synthetic being controlled by Li Wenyuan smiled benevolently at them before adding, naturally, with the exception of freedom. At present, I have no intentions of allowing you to leave this planet, but should you make sufficient contributions, I may consider granting you your freedom. Impossible. Before the others could respond, a young man interjected decisively. Why should we heed the words of someone whose identity and species remain unknown, someone whose very existence as a living being is in question? What if he is merely posturing? Perhaps he is just a drifter who arrived here before us, employing some minor tricks to create an illusion of power, seeking to make us his servants. Do not be deceived by him. Silence. The old professor glared fiercely at the young man, mentally rebuking this impertinent individual numerous times before cautiously turning his gaze back to Li Wenyuan. Esteemed guardian, my student is rather impulsive. I ask for your understanding. However, we too are curious about whether you possess the capability to support our excavation efforts, as it is quite challenging to explore perilous relics relying solely on our physical prowess. The professor, being astute, certainly would not accept Li Wenyuan's claims of guardianship at face value. If this guardian could not provide compelling evidence to substantiate his assertions, or if he were merely fabricating grandiose promises, it would indicate he was a charlatan. The professor pondered this privately, maintaining an outwardly deferential demeanor. There is nothing amiss, Li Wenyuan acknowledged, nodding. He snapped his fingers, stating, weren't you just discussing what that is in the sky? I can inform you that it is a warship. And the reason it exerts no gravitational pull is that its true form resides in subspace. What you see in the sky is merely its projection in the real universe, with a mass comparable to that of a meteorite. As he spoke, the previously dark sky suddenly brightened, the sun shining brilliantly above, rendering the former shadows as mere illusions. The crowd appeared incredulous. Could such a colossal entity, rivaling cosmic phenomena, truly be a warship? What formidable civilization could have constructed such a vessel? Such a mere glimpse may not suffice. Therefore, allow me to present to you a portion of the schematics and principles of this battleship. Given your level of education, I trust you can discern between the realms of fiction and science. As I spoke, the synthetic being's eyes gleamed, projecting a miniature schematic of a celestial veil battleship into the space around us, surrounded by an abundance of parameters that appeared quite substantial. Professors in Copper were instantly captivated, their minds brimming with knowledge, engaging in analysis and lively discussions, sometimes heatedly debating, while at other moments nodding in agreement, collectively marveling at the ingenuity before them. Even the perpetually disgruntled young man could not help but steal a glance in this atmosphere, subsequently drawn in by the intricate and imaginative structure, becoming completely immersed. Despite the numerous aspects that eluded their understanding, they were compelled to acknowledge the possibility of such a marvel. So do you believe now? A civilization capable of such technology may well belong only to those lost empires. Respected guardian, I beg your pardon for our prior rudeness. It is my honor to serve you. The professor's demeanor shifted to one of utmost reverence, and any lingering doubts he harbored dissipated upon witnessing the schematic. Utterly captivated by the technology employed therein, a chilling hypothesis began to form in his mind, that perhaps the guardian before him was of equal standing to those lost empires. Oh, Do you truly not mind being unable to return home? Li Wenyuan inquired with keen interest. The professor hesitated momentarily before responding candidly, though it is indeed regrettable. My greatest ambition in life has been to achieve results through the study of extraterrestrial relics. I do not mind being unable to return to my home planet. As long as I can fulfill my lifelong pursuit, I shall have no regrets. An admirable spirit, Li Wenyuan remarked, turning his gaze towards Copper. What are your thoughts? I share the professor's sentiments, Copper replied swiftly. I have come here to investigate the circumstances surrounding my father's death, and now that I have found a lead, I would not agree to be sent away, even if compelled. Quite a commendable perspective, Li Wenyuan nodded, finally addressing the mysteriously confident young man. And what of your thoughts? The young man remained silent for a considerable time, his gaze flickering as if engaged in intense contemplation. Eventually, as if resolutely deciding, he posed a question to Li Wenyuan. Before I answer, may I ask a question? Of course. May I inquire if the battleship above is under your control? It is indeed under my command. What do you ask? Li Wenyuan responded cheerfully, curiosity evident in his expression as he pondered the young man's inquiry. The young man exhaled deeply, his entire demeanor relaxing, his previously restless gaze transforming into one of intrigue. His expression radiated a profound confidence. As if he held the reins of the situation firmly in hand, he advanced slowly, with each step elevating his spirit and infusing him with an aura of confidence that transformed into a commanding presence, allowing him to gaze disdainfully upon the world. There is nothing to fear, old relic. Your trinkets have long since become obsolete. With a mocking smile, he declared, allow me to demonstrate the power of the new era. Chapter 21. Is this all? Old relic, your artifacts are indeed outdated. The audacity and self-assurance of the young man momentarily stunned Li Wenyuan. Could it be that he possessed an unfathomable trump card, perhaps a super bomb capable of obliterating an entire solar system? Such thoughts inevitably crossed his mind, prompting him to regard the youth with heightened caution. Witnessing the guardian's demeanor, the young man grew even more confident, his every gesture exuding the poise of one in a position of authority. I knew you were merely posturing. Otherwise, how could the life intensity detector bestowed upon me by that esteemed individual show no response? It can even detect cosmic entities that devour planets. Why are you the exception? This situation indicated that either the intensity of your life force had reached such a level that you could traverse stars freely, or you are simply an absurdly weak insect. Clearly, you are not of the former kind. Beings that reach such heights exist solely in the form of pure energy. The young man boasted before everyone, as if flaunting his knowledge could satiate his vanity. Li Wenyuan, discerning additional information from his words, pondered the existence of such life forms. Indeed, the universe is a realm of unfathomable wonders. And what of that esteemed individual? His gaze flickered, fixating intently on the loquacious youth, discreetly directing a cannon of the Tianwei warship towards this location. If necessary, he would forsake this group of experts to extinguish the threat in its infancy. Regrettably, he felt a twinge of remorse. Perhaps it would have been wiser to operate from the shadows rather than stepping into the light as a puppet master. Despite his extensive observation and scanning, which had led him to confirm that this group of aliens posed no possible threat, he had nonetheless chosen to engage them in discussions of collaboration. Yet, one must always consider the unforeseen. What if this young man truly possessed a bomb capable of annihilating the solar system? In summary, Li Wenyuan remained acutely vigilant. Should this alien make any sudden movements, he would unleash his artillery to reduce everything here to dust. Enough. Huss. At that moment, Cooper could no longer contain himself, pointing an accusatory finger at the young man named Huss. Who granted you such audacity? Have you forgotten how our ship lost control? You truly believe that your pathetic instrument can function? Silence. Huss glared furiously, his eyes fixed on Cooper as if he were a sworn enemy. You dare to insult that esteemed individual? I have long been intolerant of your self-righteous demeanor. You, the inhabitants of Laboan, have only recently emerged from the confines of your indigenous existence, and your so-called civilization, along with your inferior race, dares to share the same educational institution as I. Merely beholding your skin tone induces a wave of revulsion within me. Cooper, infuriated by these words, found himself nearly speechless. He had never fathomed that Huss held such a disdain for him based on this very reason. Allow me to enlighten you. No matter the effort exerted by individuals from a so-called garbage civilization, they shall never ascend to my level, one who hails from a superior culture. As he spoke, Huss cast a cold glance toward the expressionless Li Wenyuan, revealing a glimmer of avarice. And you, antiquated relic, I find your command over this warship quite intriguing. Should you beseech me to accept this knowledge and allow you to become the master of this vessel, I might consider granting you the position of my subordinate, providing you with the honor of witnessing the conquest of the galaxy alongside me. Li Wenyuan remained unfazed by Huss's hubris. Instead, he mused inwardly. Is he coveting the Celestial Veil warship? Indeed, fine treasures are universally revered. Yet, is this extraterrestrial truly as formidable as he claims? The lingering doubt in his heart prevented him from permitting a direct bombardment of this location. If possible, he wished to avoid the loss of so many archaeological experts in one fell swoop. Patience is key, Let us observe what means he possesses. I am prepared to trigger the weaponry. Should this synthetic human lose connection, the ship's artillery will fire immediately. Thus, he continued to fixate on Huss, remaining silent. Realizing that the antiquated figure before him had no intention of complying with his demands, Huss's face contorted into a mocking expression as he addressed Li Wenyuan with feigned pity. Indeed, it is like playing music to a deaf audience. The old relic is forever ensnared in his own world, arrogantly dismissing any novel ideas, unaware that this is the very root of their demise. With that, he snapped his fingers lightly. Suddenly, the interior of the ruins was enveloped in an eerie atmosphere. The luminescent walls began to tremble, and the dust clinging to them swirled in the commotion. Cooper and the other extraterrestrials inexplicably collapsed to their knees. Then, as if burdened by a tremendous weight, prostrated themselves on the ground. Even so, they trembled, expressions etched with agony, as though a colossal stone pressed down upon them. Li Wenyuan's pupils constricted in response, and he nearly commanded the celestial veil to open fire on this sight. However, in the next moment, the tremors ceased, returning to tranquility, leaving only the extraterrestrials in their position of subjugation. What do you perceive? Do you feel this immense power? This is a privilege bestowed solely upon the chosen ones. Bow before me. Huss maintained his air of extreme confidence and self-satisfaction. Only Li Wenyuan, still bewildered, blurted out, "Is that all?" Even though his words bore no malice. Filled only with questions, they struck Huss's ears as an intolerable cacophony. "You wretched creature, do you dare mock me, a great chosen one? You shall pay dearly." Huss's eyes glowed a fiery red, causing the surrounding walls to tremble once more. This time, the crushed aliens were oozing blood, their organs straining under the immense pressure. Only Li Wenyuan remained perplexed, casting an odd gaze upon Huss. Why are you unaffected? Shouldn't everyone be kneeling at my feet?" Huss stared incredulously at the impassive guardian, his expression shifting to one of madness. "Bow before me. You insignificant insect are only worthy of gazing upon my form." He intensified the extraordinary force, plunging the other aliens into peril. Just then, Li Wenyuan, who had remained largely silent, suddenly spoke. "I see. Controlling gravity, is it? This is my first encounter with such a phenomenon. However, I cannot allow you to continue, or else the expert I have painstakingly sought will be lost to you." In an instant, the synthetic being shifted slightly, and before Huss could react, delivered a powerful punch that sent him crashing against the wall. The oppressive force that had subdued the aliens dissipated, causing the professor to cough up blood, staring in astonishment at Huss embedded in the wall. "This technology, are you one of the Silver Star Duke's people? No wonder you possess such instruments for detecting life force." Upon hearing the familiar name, Li Wenyuan's expression remained largely unchanged. Instead, he raised a hand, aiming at Huss. The synthetic skin on his palm suddenly split, revealing a dark void behind it, where the essence of death was brewing. "I had thought there were no creatures in this world so foolish, yet you have broadened my horizons. Did you truly not realize that I am, in fact, a robot? Or do you believe your gravity manipulation can truly subdue me? To be frank, even if you increased that gravity 100-fold, it would not affect me, for my maximum output is beyond your wildest imagination. You are remarkably confident. Even I am taken aback by your bravado. If such talent were directed toward the arts, you could have achieved greatness, yet you have no future left." These understated words sealed Huss's fate, causing a subtle change in his expression. He struggled to free himself from the wall while continuing to threaten. "Do you know who you are speaking to? I am chosen by the Duke. Do you comprehend the Duke's might? You, ignorant relic, if you dare to kill me, you, and the planet you protect, will become the Duke's prey. If you apologize now, I may let the past be the past. Otherwise, indeed, there truly exists a fool." Li Wenyuan shook his head, weary of conversing with such an imbecile. The synthetic being's palm shimmered with light, and a high-energy beam struck Huss's head. Before fully understanding the potential threat posed by this gravity manipulation technology, he preferred to eradicate the menace at its inception, even if it meant sacrificing some information. At the moment of his demise, Huss retained his arrogant demeanor, cursing as if he could scarcely believe that Li Wenyuan truly had the audacity to take his life. The conceited extraterrestrial collapsed with a thud, while Li Wenyuan turned away, appearing unperturbed, and smiled at the others sprawled on the ground. "Do you possess any healing medications? If not, I can lend you some. Though it will not be without cost. One pill grants you a year of freedom. How does that sound? A rather lucrative deal, wouldn't you agree?" The aliens, feigning severe injuries, sprang to their feet. Their physical prowess, enhanced by genetic modifications, rendered them resilient, and while they appeared pitiable, they had not sustained any grievous harm. After hastily swallowing their medical capsules, their distressed expressions quickly reverted to normalcy. "However, we have indeed incurred some internal injuries and would appreciate a few days' rest before commencing our excavation of the ruins." Copper cautiously attempted to negotiate with the guardian before him. Li Wenyuan nodded in agreement, his spirits lifted. "Of course, take your time acclimating to this planet. For the foreseeable future, this will be your home." Observing his cheerful demeanor, Copper inexplicably felt a sense of entrapment within a dark lair. Chapter 22. The initial farming plan when the professor escorted his students to the accommodations arranged by the Guardians. They were instantly awestruck by the grandeur that surrounded them. This was a synthetic city. An immense array of structures rose and fell within a designated area, meticulously designed to avoid congestion while maximizing every inch of space. From the metallic flooring to the towering integrated skyscrapers, the city encompassed everything from sprawling amusement parks covering several square kilometers to a rice cooker attached to a metallic base. Every aspect of the city, including the city itself, was synthesized within a larger, more complex machine. To put it simply, it was a city birthed from an enormous 3D printer. Could such an idea even exist? Kappa's words were laden with astonishment, and a wave of trepidation washed over him. He felt immensely fortunate for having never spoken ill of that guardian. He could scarcely fathom the might of such a civilization at its zenith. His own race's establishment, the Labor Federation, would likely seem insignificant in their presence. A civilization capable of constructing such warships would undoubtedly find the creation of this city child's play. The professor, equally captivated, gazed upon the city as if it were a masterpiece of art. Li Wenyuan found the alien's flattering remarks quite pleasurable. Although the construction of the city bore no relation to him, who does not relish the gaze of envy from others, their speculations piqued Li Wenyuan's interest, prompting him to consult the technological tree as he began to browse through its contents. This city must have employed this technology, he mused. Thus contemplating, he discovered relevant technology amidst the dim foliage. Large-scale printing project, technology level 5. Description. In the past, production lines significantly enhanced our industrial capacity, and assembly factories became synonymous with efficiency. However, in an era where products are increasingly colossal, we should endeavor to seek more efficient methodologies. For instance, a machine capable of printing entire cities. Potential technologies: synthetic fleet, 0. Giant printing project, 0. Megastructure engineering, 0. Li Wenyan did not activate this technology. The synthetic city before him was one of the legacies left by humanity. Presently, only one such city existed on the planet, indicating that the prospects of this large-scale printing project were rather bleak, as humanity had abandoned the endeavor after a single experiment. Otherwise, there should be such synthetic cities scattered everywhere. As he approached the city, Li Wenyan recalled something and addressed the extraterrestrials. By the way, in order to utilize the facilities of this city, one must connect to its network. You're not robots, and I assume you would not accept the method of implanting chips. So for now, use this. He produced a device resembling a tablet and distributed one to each of the extraterrestrials. There should be plenty of similar devices in the cosmos. I believe your intellect will enable you to adapt swiftly. If you encounter any issues, contact me through this. After uttering these words, he gracefully turned and took off, tracing an arc in the sky before vanishing from the sight of the extraterrestrials. The aliens exchanged glances, and Copper could not help but remark, "He just left like that? No need to keep an eye on us." The professor sighed, expressing his helplessness. For him, the entire planet must be under his watch. And as it stands, have you seen any other outsiders? If my conjecture is correct, this individual may very well represent an entire civilization. Let us take these days to cultivate our hearts and prepare for the possibility of never returning. The extraterrestrials' discussion went unheard by Li Wenyan. His control over the synthetic being taking flight was merely an illusion. In reality, his consciousness data had returned to the core of supervision at the moment of ascent. Meanwhile, the autopsy results of the exceedingly confident extraterrestrial named Huss had emerged, and Li Wenyan was curious about how he manipulated gravity. The answer lay before him. In a laboratory within the research district, a grain-sized fragment of white material was held captive at its center by a powerful field. This was the special substance extracted from Huss' body, which surprised Li Wenyan greatly. The database described it as follows: activated neutron star material. Description: high-density neutron star material has been artificially stripped and, through a specific process, retains its neutron degeneracy state. There seems to exist a unique group within the universe capable of utilizing this neutron star material to generate gravity in a limited area. Is there truly a race nearly equivalent to possessing superpowers? Li Wenyuan furrowed his brow, grappling with an incomprehensible notion. It is worth noting that the mass of a neutron star, no larger than a grain of rice, weighs an astonishing 10 million tons. He could hardly fathom how such an ordinary yet utterly foolish extraterrestrial being as Huss could contain it within without being torn asunder. Could it possibly be linked to those idealistic civilizations? The mere thought of such unscientific entities sent a wave of discomfort through him, compelling him to dig up Newton's coffin to demonstrate what true magic entails. However, thanks to this perplexing situation, I have also unlocked a new technology. As the words flowed, the technological tree reappeared within the virtual realm. Positioned in the mid-tier, a solitary technology was illuminated. 0 element material. Technology level 6. Description: high-density neutron material may provide a solution to the long-standing issue of warship protection. Following this, all attacks will become part of it. Possible technology: 0 element armor. 0. The branch of 0 element material culminated in 0 element armor, which took Li Wenyuan by surprise. Regrettably, The prerequisite technology for zero-element mining had not been activated, rendering this newfound knowledge temporarily useless. After lamenting the addition of yet another technology that he could not yet employ, he shifted his gaze to a recently completed project. With this, he should no longer face resource shortages, he thought, his eyes gleaming with anticipation for the future. At that moment, a colossal black box slowly rose from the earth. This was the recently repaired dimensional fabricator, capable of extracting resources from parallel universes, thus bringing forth matter from nothingness in this universe. Its primary facilities were entirely contained within this enormous black box, spanning over 1,000 square kilometers. Though significantly smaller than a level 4 singularity, it was an exceedingly unique establishment. Li Wenyuan recalled the explicit instructions in the repair schematic, which stated that no personnel, not even robots, should be placed inside the black box after the dimensional fabricator was activated. Furthermore, direct observation of the interior via monitoring devices was prohibited. Even in the event of a malfunction requiring repair, one must wait until the dimensional fabricator ceased operations before entering. According to the specific directives in the schematic, the area surrounding the activated dimensional fabricator became a restricted zone, off-limits to human presence and observation, while the resources produced would be transported externally via fully automated conduits. The warnings instilled in Li Wenyuan a sense of unease. After all, are there not enough peculiarities in this universe? Perhaps it is better to focus on the present. He harbored no intentions of contravening the special instructions, allowing the synthetic beings to convey the final condition of the repair process, Zeluo, into the black box via external transmission devices. Following this, tranquility ensued. There were no explosions, nor eerie illuminations. The world continued its normal operations. Yet, as Li Wenyuan intently observed the planetary management interface, a smile gradually spread across his face. Currently, the energy output of the planet is approximately 120,000 units. Data corruption. Energy consumption is 72,000 units. Dimensional manufacturing machine energy consumption, 5,000 units. Current energy yield is approximately 15,050 units. The dimensional manufacturing machine commenced its regular operation, and he witnessed the soaring output. Having more resources is indeed advantageous. If I cultivate it for a decade or so, I should be able to make my mark on the interstellar stage, shouldn't I? Chapter 23, A Decade of Emergence. A decade, in the grand scale of the cosmos, is but a fleeting moment, barely a blink in the life of civilization. No one anticipated that within this ephemeral decade, a formidable civilization was emerging in a small star system on the fringes of the galaxy. According to current assessments, exploring this relic would require at least 20 expendable assets. Why so many? Although the Guardian has not restricted our usage, we cannot squander his resources recklessly. We must reduce this number to a single digit. In that case, we will have to rely on skill. Do you still have that mental enhancement drug you procured last time? That was a prototype developed by the Guardian, and I shamelessly begged him for just those 2 doses. What a pity. I long to experience that superhuman sensation once more. Shall we wager? I shall delve deeper into the relic before you, and my losses will be lesser. Huh. A young one wishes to compete with an old man like me? Under ordinary circumstances, I might ponder this, but once consciousness is synced with the synthetic body, who will prevail remains an enigma. At the entrance of a relic, 2 extraterrestrials were jovially engaging in a wager. They were Copper and the Professor, who had resided here for nearly 10 years. During this time, they had indeed unearthed numerous relics, albeit only 15 of those present on this planet. Nevertheless, these 15 have bestowed upon Li Wenyuan many unimaginable benefits. Today marks the initiation of their 12th regional relic excavation project. Over these not-so-brief 10 years, excavating relics has become an integral part of their lives. From initially adopting a cautious approach to gradually loosening their constraints, they have become increasingly engrossed in their endeavors, eagerly anticipating their arrival here. It is time to prepare. After a 10-second countdown, we shall enter together. Copper was the first to don a helmet-like device, his eyes revealing an eagerness that could not be contained. The Professor spoke little, similarly equipping himself with the same apparatus. In a matter of seconds, 2 synthetic beings in the vicinity suddenly lifted their heads. Their normally vacant synthetic eyes now sparkled with a glimmer of humanity. This was the consciousness synchronizer developed by Li Wenyuan, capable of aligning the consciousness signals of biological entities with those of the synthetic bodies, thus allowing for nearly flawless control of the synthetics by the biological beings. After a trial run, these alien archaeological experts found themselves enamored with the device, captivated by the exhilarating sensation of becoming one with the synthetic form. Moreover, transforming into a synthetic being and exploring these perilous ruins has bestowed upon them an extraordinary thrill. Phenomena and dangers that were once confined to the realms of cinema and literature can now be experienced firsthand. Overcoming daunting challenges and uncovering hidden truths and treasures serve as invigorating stimuli for the spirit. The old professor, who had previously explored numerous alien relics, now feels that the first half of his life was squandered, yearning to have arrived here sooner. The ruins he had once meticulously navigated with drones now seem trivial and utterly unexciting compared to the exhilarating first-person adventures he now undertakes as a synthetic being. The two synthetics, having synchronized their consciousness with that of extraterrestrials, exchanged glances before stepping forward, vanishing into the depths of the ruins. Meanwhile, on the other side of Earth, within the colossal core of the Guardian, Li Wenyuan was deep in contemplation. Before him lay a neatly arranged string of data, the fruits of his labor over the past decade. Planetary facility repairs completed. Level 4 singularity in Area 9195. Dimensional manufacturing machine in Area 26. Robot assembly plant in Area 1. Research center in Area 10. Planetary auxiliary control hub in Area 25. Space facility repairs completed. Qingtian Space Station. Wide area signal jamming station. Superluminal suppressor. Unmanned fleet scale. 1 Tianwei battleship. 1 Titan battleship. 25 battlecruisers. 10 battleships. 200 frigates. Guardian matrix completion. 45. In addition to this data, there were other undisclosed achievements. In terms of technology, Li Wenyuan had nearly exhausted all research on Level 5 technologies, with a handful of Level 6 technologies successfully developed. Thanks to these advancements, he had produced numerous remarkable innovations. However, he found himself at a near standstill. The research on most Level 6 technologies often spanned decades, not to mention those that required centuries or even millennia for advancement. Was it due to the computational capacity of the research zones being insufficient? Observing the fully operational research zones, a tinge of helplessness washed over him. The difficulty of technological research exhibited exponential growth. Initially, the research zones managed to keep pace, but now they seemed to lag behind the times. He pondered whether to enhance research capabilities by constructing more research zones on other planets or by erecting colossal research facilities on a planetary scale. Regardless, it was imperative to venture into interstellar space once again. The solar system, as his home, could not accommodate the burgeoning demands. It was impossible to build everything here. Expansion into other star systems was essential. Thus, did he possess the qualifications to stand upon the interstellar stage? Li Wenyuan's gaze flickered as he looked towards the distant cosmos. There, a fleet floated orderly in the void. He had devoted nearly all of his decade's productivity to the creation of this fleet. As his relentless pursuit of security compelled him to establish this space defense force to eliminate potential invaders. After repairing the skyward space station that plummeted toward the star, he discovered an abundance of blueprints for various warships, ranging from frigates less than 1,000 meters in length to Titanic battleships nearing 100 kilometers. The designs were remarkably comprehensive. Utilizing these blueprints, he constructed his inaugural space fleet. A visit to Kirbo was in order. This time, it should yield an accurate assessment of the current interstellar civilization's capabilities. Should the findings fall within acceptable parameters, expansion would be feasible. Otherwise, many ambitions would remain unfulfilled within the confines of the solar system. Accompanying his thoughts, a group of androids from the space station entered a research vessel. He intended to procure only a modest amount of equipment. Thus, a fully equipped research ship would serve as the optimal choice for exploring the cosmos. Several frigates detached from the fleet, escorting the research ship to the edge of the star system. Upon escaping the gravitational well of the sun, they would activate their hyperspace engines, setting a course for the Kirbo trading enclave, a place they had previously visited. Meanwhile, Lillian, engaged in her daily prayers, seemed to sense something amiss and raised her head. Her human visage had remained largely unchanged over the past decade, leaving Li Wenyuan astounded. Upon examining a strand of her hair, he discovered that her cellular aging process was remarkably slow, while her regenerative capacity was astonishingly rapid, resulting in no significant alteration of her appearance for at least 5 centuries. After some inquiry, he learned that her race was inherently endowed with such traits, with individuals among her kin living for over 2 millennia. This revelation only deepened Li Wenyuan's curiosity about her species, prompting a desire to explore her home world. Hoping this journey would unveil useful information, he felt that remaining on Earth was becoming increasingly stifling. Chapter 24, Arrival Quick. Notify headquarters. We are under attack by a swarm. Damn it. Where are the escort frigates? Where are they? Drive these deadly assailants away. Dear adventurers, the swarm has besieged this location, sealing off the hyperspace routes to the outside. We must unite on the same front to withstand this crisis. Kirbo promises a generous reward following this assault. At this moment, the Kirbo Trading Enclave number 13, situated on the fringes of the galaxy, was enduring a calamity. No one could have anticipated that even such a remote locale would fall prey to a swarm attack. A battered escort frigate navigated through the chaotic battlefield, narrowly evading the corrosive acid spat from the gunner bugs, and employing exceptional skill to shatter the obstructing mosquito hunters before precariously docking at the trembling trade station starport. A towering alien disembarked, confronted with a scene of unimaginable horror. Countless dismembered bodies from various races littered the ground, a nauseating miasma of pus and foul odors permeating the enclosed space. A handful of rogue flying insects, having broken free from the hive's control, hovered about, indiscriminately devouring the scattered remains. The extraterrestrial furrowed his brow, yet with precision, he utilized the weapon in his grasp to eliminate the voracious flying insects that continued their feast. Subsequently, he activated his communicator and inquired, "Hello? Are there any survivors at the trading center? This is Bear, and I urgently require assistance to operate the platform's defensive ion cannon. Please respond." This individual was Bear, the bear-like alien who had once attempted to extort a sum from Li Wenyuan. Now, he emanated an aura of ruthless authority, his gaze steely and indifferent to the corpses strewn about, as if such scenes were commonplace to him. After a crackling noise from the communicator, a voice soon responded. "This is the trading center. We are currently besieged by a swarm of aggressive entities and cannot spare any personnel. We hope you can expedite reinforcements." Instead of receiving aid, Bear found himself in need of assistance, prompting him to abruptly disconnect the call. Frustrated, he grasped a handful of fur and shouted to those behind him, "Everyone, descend. We must carve a bloody path to the defensive platform, or we shall perish here." No sooner had his words echoed than several seasoned veterans leaped down from the docked escort vessel. Bear led this contingent as they advanced with purpose through the trade station, littered with the fallen. Meanwhile, in the vastness of outer space, two factions were engaged in a chaotic skirmish. One faction consisted of the escort fleet, led by Kuruebwa, alongside a band of adventurers who had not managed to evacuate. The other was the insidious swarm of predatory entities that had stealthily infiltrated the area to wreak havoc. This predatory swarm, a civilization comprised of perilous beings, had long been the subject of debate among interstellar scholars regarding its classification as a civilization. Ultimately, they were categorized as such due to their numerous civilizational traits, highly specialized roles, potentially incomprehensible language and script, and strategic planning for expansion. Their existence appeared remarkably orderly and civilized, save for their penchant for plundering organic matter. This proclivity was a focal point of contention among scholars. In simpler terms, they relished the reduction of all biological entities to organic molecules, which they then utilized to fortify and enhance themselves. This manifested in the consumption of every encountered extraterrestrial life form. For most species, this was undoubtedly catastrophic. However, for the swarm, it constituted the most effective means of population growth. What was the situation at their headquarters? Had they not proclaimed a resounding victory? Why then? Was there still a swarm present here? Within the central building, an employee erupted in expletives, drawing the attention of many, including Brenning, the individual in charge, who cast a sidelong glance at him for articulating the collective concern. Not long ago, the predatory swarm had expanded into a forested planet under Kuruebwa's jurisdiction, plundering its primitive life forms and transforming what was once a planet ripe for development into a desolate wasteland of exposed rock. Certainly, Koribor could not possibly swallow this bitter fruit. It promptly declared a state of war and launched a counteroffensive against the swarm using a multitude of mercenaries, swiftly achieving a series of victories. Now, just as the war was nearing its conclusion and celebrations of triumph were underway, the swarm's retaliation commenced. They evolved a shell capable of cloaking existing interstellar detection, stealthily infiltrating several of Koribor's trade outposts. This was merely one among them. Everyone, brace yourselves. Support from headquarters is en route. If we can endure this trial, the contract duration for all will be reduced by 50 years. Blanding attempted to uplift morale with his words, yet no one responded. Given the current circumstances, it was likely they would not survive until then. Blanding's gaze dimmed slightly. A staunch skeptic of idealistic civilizations, he found himself praying for a miracle. Meanwhile, in a neighboring star system just 1 light-year away from this trade station, Li Wenyuan frowned as he observed the distress signal received. His research vessel and unmanned frigates, after a month of hyperspace travel, were on the verge of entering the star system, hosting the Koribor trade station. At that moment, he intercepted the plea for help emanating from within the system. To all interstellar civilizations receiving this message, I am Blanding, the head of Koribor Trade Outpost number 13. Our coordinates are: we are currently under attack by the swarm, and I am reaching out on behalf of Koribor to request assistance from any capable interstellar civilization. Any fleet dispatched to aid us, regardless of the outcome, will receive a generous reward. Koribor's trade outpost was the closest interstellar information hub to the solar system, and Li Wenyuan did not wish to see such a pivotal location perish. However, his immediate hesitation to launch a rescue was rooted in concern for the strength of his own fleet. The swarm, its very name evoked images of a relentless horde. Did he possess sufficient power to confront them? He recalled a famous adage from Star Conquest: "My swarm is endless while your forces dwindle with each passing moment." What suspense remains in this outcome? The thought of an overwhelming swarm made Li Wenyuan doubt his own capabilities. Nevertheless, interstellar warfare is inevitable. This encounter will serve as a concrete assessment of my fleet's strength. If worst comes to worst, I still have the Tianwei-class battleship as a safety net. After a moment of contemplation, he resolved to mobilize the unmanned fleet still stationed in the solar system. The heavy steel behemoths seemed to come alive in an instant, their newly installed engines emitting a deep, resonant roar. Light danced around their colossal forms, shattering and reorganizing the fabric of space. A powerful wave of energy radiated outward, expanding across the galaxy with their departure. In the next moment, hundreds of warships descended upon Koribor's trade outpost number 13. The ancient trading station stood on the brink of collapse, Yet every creature's gaze converged upon the enigmatic black fleet that had suddenly appeared. A palpable sense of primordial oppression gradually enveloped the entire star system. Chapter 25, The Jump Engine. This concept, often encountered by Li Wenyuan in the realm of science fiction, is multifaceted, yet fundamentally serves as a means for spacecraft to traverse faster than light. During his time in agricultural endeavors, he successfully unearthed a technological blueprint from an ancient ruin, thanks to the insights of extraterrestrial experts. This technology was none other than the jump engine. Li Wenyuan soon discovered that the jump engines in this universe exhibited a somewhat enhanced efficacy. Jump engine, technology level 8. Description. Although faster-than-light travel has become an indispensable aspect of interstellar navigation, we must seek even swifter methods of traversal. The technological advancements of idealist civilizations have provided us with inspiration. Perhaps we can directly tear apart the continuity of space-time, reconstructing it at the quantum level to align with our destination, thus achieving the desired effect. Potential technologies. None. The jump engine represents a terminal technology on the technological tree at this juncture. The database of his home planet could not predict the theoretical technologies it might yield. Its description appeared rather cryptic, but through experimentation, Li Wenyuan discovered that it was an extraordinarily powerful technology. The notion of tearing apart the continuity of space-time at the quantum level does not alter the vessel's position. Rather, it transforms the position of space itself. Instead of the ship arriving at a destination, the space occupied by the ship morphs into the destination. The resultant effect is instantaneous movement, a true teleportation. In one moment, the vessel might be light years away, and in the next, it materializes before him. While Li Wenyuan was uncertain of the jump engine's precise operational range, he understood that the capability of instantaneous travel justified its formidable technology level of 8. Currently, all of his advanced technologies had been excavated, instilling in him immense anticipation for other ruins on his home planet. However, a technology as formidable as the jump engine naturally comes with its drawbacks. First, tearing apart space-time requires an immense amount of energy, the larger the spatial expanse. The greater the consumption, rendering the jump engine usable only once in a short span of time, preventing consecutive uses. Secondly, the jump necessitates a wealth of data regarding the destination to construct a consistent space-time. Locations never visited are beyond the jump engine's reach. Nevertheless, these shortcomings pale in comparison to its utility. Given the urgency of the distress signal from Karibo, Li Wenyuan was uncertain whether utilizing hyperspace travel would allow the fleet to arrive in time for their rescue. Thus, he resolved to employ the jump engine to hasten their journey to the trade enclave of Karibo. Meanwhile, all life within the star system regarded this suddenly emerged mysterious fleet with a wary disposition. The swarm was perplexed as to why this fleet had arrived without emitting a hyperspace signal, while Karibo struggled to ascertain the civilization from which this fleet originated. As a galactic enterprise, they were well acquainted with the majority of civilizations in the current galaxy, yet this enigmatic black fleet eluded their understanding. Old Beard, with your extensive experience, can you discern the origin of this fleet? Queried a goat-like extraterrestrial, stroking his lengthy chin whiskers, only to shake his head in response. I cannot fathom why you lean so close, trying to appear significant. That remark is erroneous. My vision is poor, and without drawing nearer, I cannot see clearly. If your eyesight is failing, perhaps you should procure a new pair. Do not occupy space here. A prosthetic would cost me 2 years' salary. You youngsters, always outfitting yourselves with assorted enhancements, oblivious to the fact that your lifetime contracts are inescapable. Blaine, undeterred by the employees' bickering, instead let his mind race, contemplating the possibilities surrounding this fleet. As the leader, his broad knowledge was a prerequisite for his position. Could it be the Turbulent Empire? Unlikely, for their ships typically bore a blue color scheme. Perhaps the Dankam clan? No, these pacifists would only mobilize their fleet if threatened within their borders. The Coal Confederation? Hardly. These criminals would be unlikely to seize the opportunity to strike. He reflected on the nearby civilizations that had previously interacted with the Enterprise, yet none matched the criteria. So, who could it be? As he pondered, a seemingly trivial detail surfaced from the recesses of his memory. 10 years was ample time for him, a man immersed in corporate affairs daily, to forget many memories. However, one particular segment remained etched in his mind. Could it be the Guardians? Lost in thought, he inadvertently vocalized his musings. Upon lifting his gaze, he found his employees fixated on him. Manager, do you know the origin of this fleet? Are they indeed called the Guardians? Manager, are we perhaps saved? Truly, our manager is both talented and knowledgeable. He is indeed the pillar of Karibo, even in life and death circumstances. Flattery persisted, yet Blaine remained silent, his gaze fixed upon the distant black fleet in the starry expanse. This time, he felt he had arrived at the correct conclusion. The swarm commenced a tentative offensive against the suddenly appearing mysterious fleet, intent on utterly annihilating this trade enclave, undeterred by the arrival of other vessels. Moreover, the swarm's main intellect did not perceive itself as outmatched, although she sensed an indescribable aura of dread emanating from the armor of these warships. Her numerical superiority instilled confidence that they could drive this fleet away, or even obliterate it. A cluster of gun-nosed insects aim their long and sturdy snouts at the Black Fleet. This colossal organism possesses the remarkable ability to compress the acidic fluid it generates internally and expel it outward at an astonishing initial velocity, serving as the primary offensive weapon of the swarm. In an era where protective shields are extensively utilized in interstellar conflicts, many of these shields prove ineffective against the corrosive fluid. This liquid harbors parasitic organisms that thrive in highly acidic environments, capable of altering the flight trajectory of the acidic fluid mid-course. For instance, they can abruptly decelerate the fluid, deceiving shields designed to intercept high-velocity projectiles, thereby swiftly corroding the armor of spacecraft. The central mind of the swarm, a seasoned combatant, is acutely aware that the vessels of most civilizations are merely thinly armored, yet heavily armed. Although they can annihilate numerous members of the swarm